Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of the United States of a Movie podcast. I hope you're having a great Monday. I know we definitely are, because we once again get to talk about movies, our favorite thing to do, our favorite thing to talk about, because here on this podcast, what we try to do is to find the one movie, to define each state in the United States, and it is not an easy task, as pleasurable as it is, especially when you get to watch Twister like last week, right, Will? But of course, this is not the kind of thing that I could take on by myself, so of course I've got my amazing film nerd co-hosts here with me as always. First of all, Will Hirsch, welcome back to the show with some of your questionable opinions.
Thank you. No, it's glad to be here. I just want to say I'm feeling good. I just invested with FTX. I'm feeling good about my cryptocurrency. Let me check the news real quick while I have a sip right here.
Are you drinking Wolf Cola? The only cola.
The only cola.
Well, okay, now that Will's completely broke, hopefully we can make this into a money-making venture. But of course, we've also got another amazing co-host, Ryan Sandler. Welcome back to the show, buddy.
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm just getting ready to cash in all of my Blockbuster stock, so fingers crossed, boys. Fingers
For good investment advice, you come to this podcast.
That's right.
I don't know about you, but I've got 100,000 shares in Ask Jeeves. I'm still hopeful.
That's going to turn around.
This week though, guys, I had so much fun watching our movies this week.
Yeah.
We came up with some bangers. The state that we were taking down at the requests of Ryan and Will to avoid any state that had corn in it, because we've been getting a lot of.
It paid off though. It paid off. I think this week was a much easier stream of movies than the previous week. One, that they're all very, very short. And two, that there is no problematic things going on in them at all.
No, we don't have to get deep into stuff. We don't have to. No, it was just straight up wall-to-wall bangers. And I exactly like you guys said, I took these movies down quick this week. Yeah. There are other times where I'm like last second watching a movie. This time, so far ahead of the game, almost want to rewatch them.
I try and have my screen up where I have all three movies playing simultaneously.
And you got your eyelids being held open.
I'm just like,
So yeah, the state we're taking down is Washington State. And I tell you what, we ended up with some great movies. Why don't we start with the movie that I brought to the table? A big fan of this movie, I have to be honest, and I will definitely get into it later about, I feel like, maligned in an unfair way. This movie is way better than the reviews say. I went with 1997's Dantes Peak, directed by Roger Donaldson. I've got a soft spot for this guy. So does Will. I know he's that.
I do too. We talked about it.
He's directed some bangers.
Starring Pierce Brosnan. A very special place in my heart.
Oh, but yeah, starring Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton, basically. Other people, but who cares? They're the top two. That movie, guys, like we were texting about it. We were all texting when we were watching these movies. Like this movie, we're like, this movie's legit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This was a fun one for sure. And it's so funny to me, Will, that you like this movie but not Twister, because they're pretty.
I was gonna say, it's like
I can't explain it. I don't know. For some reason, this was, even though there was some very questionable, like lava things going on. It wasn't. I guess I'm comparing it to like that Jurassic World movie where there was a volcano and the dinosaurs were like, "Ooh, ouchie! I got lava on me." Where I'm like, "No, that's not."
Because famously, dinosaurs famously love lava.
They swim in it all the time, apparently. But like, so I guess because I was comparing it to that, where I was like, well, at least these people are running from lava,
right?
That like it really like I bought into it way more.
Hey man, dinosaurs do love lava. You never seen The Land Before Time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know?
All of them. I kept thinking Ollie, and for those of you listening at home who don't know, Ollie's truck somehow looks like it survived both Twister and Dantes Peak.
And it
And
would
it's still going.
too. It is a
And would, yeah.
Toyota. It is a Toyota pickup truck. Quarter of a million miles.
Yeah.
21 years old. I love that piece of shit. It's my.
They actually used it on Top Gear to demolish a building.
They tried, but it won. I just realized, guys. I just literally put this together in my head because Dantes Peak starts with the death of Pierce Brosnan's wife. And then both of the other two movies start with a death. For example, Will, tell us about the movie you brought that starts with the death of this guy's best mate. Turns out dead of cancer. So
yeah, I brought a movie where guys all over the world, when you hear it, all their response is hell yeah. I brought First Blood to the table, the original Rambo movie. And if there was any justice in the world, it'd be the only Rambo movie. But God, I love this movie so much.
It's so good.
Again, I know I always bring this up, but I was always of the age where I'd seen many of the sequels before, and if you try and watch the modern ones, so it took me forever to really like watch the original, and it truly is the best one. I mean,
by far,
it's such like you watch it now, and it's such like a template for other movies, and it's so good. It's actually so good.
We will get into that. There's a very specific reason it did set a template for action movies. Directed by Ted Kochev. I did recognize the name. I got into it. Directed Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, almost the same exact movie.
Exactly the same movie. Yeah. And then Ryan, tell us about the movie you brought to the table, which literally starts with the death of Tom Hanks's wife.
Guys, you know me. I love picking movies where it's either the death of a child or the death of a wife in the opening scenes of a movie. Like, is that a genre? I don't know. It should be.
It's the Ryan Sandler genre.
Yes, actually. I picked Sleepless in Seattle because, I wanted to switch it up and pick something that didn't have major PTSD, even though it kind of does.
Yes. Yes, it does. There are lots of similarities in all of these movies. This one, directed by Nora Ephron, in part written by, lots we'll get into that
Sylvester
as well.
Stallone.
Written by Sylvester Stallone.
Starring Adam Driver as the boy.
But there was so many like script revisions for this. When you get into the history of this movie being made, the fact that it actually ended up being the highest grossing movie of 1993. It's
crazy. And like this movie was so popular at the time that it was being parodied left and right. And it's just such a tentpole, hell, I think it switched up the genre, like really changed that genre of like romantic comedies. It did something totally new.
It's a romantic comedy where the two leads meet with the last line of the movie.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And then they had the balls to be like, you know what, this worked so well. We're going to do it again, but now with email.
Yeah. And we're technically a sequel to Joe versus the Volcano as well.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
$1 billion.
Yeah.
Oh, underrated movie, that movie. I like that one a lot.
You know, I've only watched it once when I was a teenager, and it kind of went over my head. I was like maybe 12, actually, when I watched it. And I'm like, I was like, I like this guy. It's the guy from Turner and Hooch and Splash. I'll watch this. And I'm like, what's going on? It was very esoteric.
It's very absurd, but also very dry at the same time. Like it's not like it doesn't acknowledge how kind of like absurd and weird it is. So I could see that going over somebody's head, but I love that movie.
Sleepless in Seattle is not dry. It is sopping wet. As was my face with tears at times. I forgot. It's been a long time. I was really glad when Ryan picked this movie because it has been a long time since I watched it. I used to watch it a lot. I think I had it on VHS when I was younger. I used to put it on. It's a great movie. I love watching Tom Hanks. I just love Meg Ryan. I think, this was just such a great pairing, a great movie, so well written, so witty and everything else on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
That the rewatch was such a joy. I mean, I literally just finished watching it like an hour ago, and I'm like, man, I love that movie. What about you guys? Like, you guys have a long experience with this movie as well?
Not really. I mean, I remember because I was maybe like 10 years old when it came out. So this movie really wasn't in my wheelhouse at that time. And by the time I got older, I was like, romantic comedies, whatever. And now you watch a romantic comedy like something like The Proposal, and really these movies don't
perfect film.
They don't really do anything new. But I think they owe a lot to this movie,
Yeah, this is that era where like romantic comedies really started to change and kind of come into their own. All of them starring Meg Ryan.
Yeah.
I like this movie a lot. I still think When Harry Met Sally is the gold star standard. Like that's the best one. But this one is just so sweet, and just you're so, you know, from minute one you want them to get together, and every time they almost meet and come close, you're just like, it's so, there's a lot of surprising tension.
It does have a
throughout
little
the
bit of
entire
that
movie.
serendipity kind of like that when they're sort of constantly passing and seeing each other, and there's all
especially
these
towards the end. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I was you know, like watching it again, you know, it's been a long time and there's so much that I remembered, but there's also like bits that I've forgotten. But one thing I only noticed this one time, and it's always a line that I remember because I can do it too. It's something I've done as a kid, but I peel an apple in one big thing, and I only realized this time before he says it. You know, 10 minutes before she's doing it. And I was like,
it's such a throwaway line too. It's such a throwaway line.
But it's little things like that again, like even on the rewatch, even a movie that you've seen like
my only issue with this is how absurd they make Bill Pullman's character. Like in any other romantic comedy, he would be just a total asshole. Like he would treat her like shit, but he's just got some allergies, man.
He's a treasure. He's a treasure. She's like, when she says, "I don't deserve you," you're kind of like, no, you don't. Like Bill Pullman, I like that's done.
He's great. But now think of that role played by like a Tim Robbins, where, you know, he's such a buffoon. It makes more sense. But to have President of the United States Bill Pullman in this role is
President Lone Star. Yeah.
It took me out of it a bit. But then I guess you forget that he's a terrific comedic actor.
He's great.
Yeah.
And I love that whole thing. I mean, honestly, if you kind of a more cynical take on this movie or a more cynical look at this movie, you'd be like, it's a bit crazy, but it's like in the 90s, like pre-internet, it's like, you know, with this whole thing, it's got this element, this sort of, I don't know, it's that sort of that romantic what if kind of thing. It just works. It works. And I think it works because, I mean, you're talking about Harry Met Sally, you know, that's written by Nora Ephron as well. Am I not right? And so what she added to the script, you know, because like I said, this one went through, I mean, 20 rewrites, and it was like, it spent years and like even the guy that originally wrote it is like, he's not too sure. And then there was all this sort of Tom Hanks kind of pushing his character, pushing Nora Ephron and go, no, give me something to work with. And I think it's kind of like, we've talked about it before, of right place, right time, right moment, right people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
kismet, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and that's really kind of even what the movie's about, is like, I really like that Bill Pullman's character, bringing it back to him. It's not that he's a bad guy. It's not that he sucks. He's just not the right guy for her. You know, so we're talking about right place, right time. It's just, he's just the wrong guy. And I think they do a good job of explaining why is Tom Hanks's character a better match for Meg Ryan's character, you know? And I think that even found its way into the script is, you know, what are the ingredients that make these characters right for each other? And like you were saying with the apple, there's so many also, not just writing and dialogue, but visual cues, like the fact that Meg Ryan goes through one door and then the next shot is Tom Hanks coming out the other door. Like so many parallels where like these two are on the same page.
Yeah,
they haven't met yet.
They pan to the chocolate heart, and it's literally their silhouette. Like it's so clearly 1993 Tom Cruise and Meg Ryan silhouette.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks?
Tom Hanks.
Would have been better, Tom Cruise. Let's just in case, if you are one of the 3 people, I guess, in the world that haven't seen Sleepless in Seattle, the central point of this movie is it opens with an incredible shot, that incredible the Chicago reveal shot.
So just to say, when this opened up, I'm like, oh fuck, there's really not a lot of Washington in this movie, is there? I watched this movie with a lot of reservation.
There's more than you think. In fact, there's a lot. This is a very Seattle movie for sure. But it opens, yes, with literally the funeral of Tom Hanks's wife who has died. He's there with his young son, played by Ross Malinger.
From Sudden Death.
Yes, I was about to say that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dude, this movie has a lot of crossover in it.
Man.
Rob Reiner directed Stand By Me, and there's a number of other things I won't get into, but
yeah, no, I mean, you're right. But yes, so it opens with Tom Hanks in Chicago, architect, wife is dead. We get about 10 minutes. He feels like he's got to do something new. He's moving to Seattle. We flash forward 18 months and you just get this. And it's honestly, I mean, I was holding back tears. I love this bit, but it's his son calls into this national radio show, Dr. whatever her name is. And it's like, I think my dad needs a missus. He needs a wife, a new wife. And the scene, I just love, and I've talked about it before, we're seeing in movies, I used to watch them as kids, and now I'm a dad. I'm on the other side of this. Right. And the relationship that he has with his son and the interplay that he has with his son over, who is this? You called a radio station? No, you come out here. Yeah. And he's being very sarcastic to the radio person on the phone. But it sets up this moment where he talks about his wife. And it just hits, man. Yeah. When he starts talking about his wife, I'm like crying. I'm like, shit, he loved his wife.
Yeah, I mean, and then you got Meg Ryan in the car, and then she goes she stops at the diner, and the waitresses there are listening to the radio. Yeah. Like, you got to remember, kids, nowadays you have BetterHelp. We're not sponsored, but back in the day, you had to call a radio station and talk to a licensed therapist that everyone would listen to.
And you had to listen to radio at a certain time instead of podcasts on demand, like you guys are doing right now while brushing your teeth.
Right. You're welcome.
But that scene, like Will, like that moment, and it's the bit where they both say magic. Yeah. That's, I think, where the movie becomes magic. In that moment, you're just invested in the two of them. What do you think about that scene? Like, you know, Will, you're a writer, you make films. What do you think about it?
That's the kind of thing, like, it seems, when you see it on screen, it seems so simple. It's like, you know, obviously this is where the story should go. But man, I tell you, like, you spend so much time, like, writing and just crafting and changing lines, tweaking things just a little bit to get something even close to, like, something that's satisfying. It's so hard to lay the right groundwork to get to that moment. And this movie makes it feel effortless. Like, you're just totally into the movie. You're not even thinking about any of the cliches, how this is, you know, this movie's kind of become, like Ryan was saying, parodied at this point. You're not even thinking about it. It's so masterfully done. But clearly, because this movie went through a lot of writers, went through a lot of development, it takes so much time to get to that point. So much work. So it's impressive every time you see something like it.
So originally, the original pass on the script, it was kind of a bit more of a romantic drama. And like, you know, the whole thing of just like the people don't meet until the end is essentially there. But what I think Nora Ephron brought is a little bit more of that sort of, they call it, you know, her wit, her snark, kind of got into the sweetness of it all. But it's also just Tom Hanks, I guess, you know, because like, you know, I was saying is like, I knew him, you know, Turner and Hooch and all of these sort of kids sort of like Friendly Splash, things like that, Goofy Big. And this was like him slowly pushing himself towards that dramatic film dad that he is now, you know, America's dad to us. But it's that moment of when he goes from being quite funny on the phone and sarcastic to suddenly like sitting down and gets lost in the memory of his wife. It's so brilliant. That's when you just see the Tom Hanks that we know is coming. But that's that moment, I think, is that you say, Will, is like you're almost not thinking about it as a movie. You're just going, oh man.
You feel like, you know, in that scene, it's like he's been on that radio show for what seems like 2 hours, right? And it's you could tell with that character, it's the first time to anyone he's really had the ability to open up about his situation. And it's to some by the numbers radio doctor host, you know?
Yeah. Literally the lady Fraser Crane, which is funny because Fraser's brother is in this movie. Yes. David Hyde Pierce is in this film.
And wait a minute, and it's set in Seattle, isn't that where Fraser set as well?
Yep.
Yes.
So I like to think this is Niles before like he started bothering his brother.
100%.
Yeah. Not enough Niles, in my opinion.
No, never enough Niles.
Yeah, but like it's just that bit where he's like he's
and his son is there. His
son's hair.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And he's just I mean that one that hit. I was like, you know, in the house alone, just like kids are off at school, missus is out, and I'm just like, you know,
and
back some tears on the sofa.
And on the converse, every woman on the East Coast listening to this is so horny for Tom Hanks's. It's so crazy.
Everybody wants to bone Tom Hanks. It's like, oh, they're frothy.
Yeah,
positively frothy. But then we got. Well, let's also like give a little quick mention is that we've got the two best friends to our main characters. So Tom Hanks has got Rob Reiner. Anytime Rob Reiner just turns up in the movie, he's always great. I love him in The Wolf of Wall Street. He's like just he's always great comedic, sort of like comedy relief. And then Rosie O'Donnell as the best friend of Meg Ryan / editor at the Baltimore Sun. They give so much great, so much good shit in this movie.
They're fantastic. And Rosie O'Donnell, I was saying, as I was watching this, with a few of our roommates, and I was just like, it's so sad that I don't see Rosie O'Donnell in more things, because she's great in so much. League of Her Own, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
To the point where I was like, was she canceled for something? Was she canceled for just being herself and is just not in things anymore? Because why do I not see her in movies anymore?
Well, it's like this. I mean, this was her follow up to A League of Their Own, and A League of Their Own was her debut.
Mm-hmm.
But she was excellent, and it was kind of, they said they went Rosie O'Donnell way because of the way Whoopi Goldberg, what she brought to the movie Ghost.
Right.
That sort of comedic sort of element, but at the same time, she can be heartfelt as well. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like Rosie O'Donnell, I get it. I mean, she had her talk show and everything else and stuff like that, instead of just going straight down the movie route. I mean, but I've always liked her in movies.
You got Stakeout, Another Stakeout, the one with Dan Aykroyd where they go to the sex island.
Flintstones.
Yeah.
That's the
Flintstones,
one.
the Viva Rock Vegas.
Yeah, where she had that perfect little giggle, from Betty.
She's good.
But yeah, this movie is, it's just, I'm so charmed by it.
It's another template too. Everything now, you have the two best friends. It's such this movie isn't cliche because it kind of started that, or I should say, it made that genre explode.
And it's also, I think the fact that I think Nora Ephron took a pass on the script, and it's because then Tom Hanks was the one that he was sort of pushing for other. He goes, it's no, my character, originally in the script, he wasn't going to go off and sleep with his girlfriend because his son was upset, and Tom Hanks was the one going, no, man, look, he's been single. He's single. It's been a couple of years. He's going to want to get laid. Let me be a bit of a man about it. I can still be sensitive, and it's that people pointing out that Tom Hanks can be sort of frustrated and angry and sensitive and sweet all in almost the same moment.
It's wild.
Yeah, he can play all these different things, and he's got such great interplay with his son. There's bits that I remember. I always remember the bit where he's like, "Where's Seattle?" And his son points over there. He goes, "All right, where's Baltimore?" And he goes, "No." And he points and he goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 25 states. And his timing is immaculate. He's got such great timing.
But even that, like you're saying, when he has that rage scene when he's about to go on this Holiday Inn trip with that lady, he gets into it with his son. He swings through all these emotions. He's like, I had sex with 6 in college, 6 women, 7, no, 8.
Yeah, he's like, wait, how long have you been standing there? And he's like, long enough. What did I say? And he goes, yeah, wait, 8. And then he names the women. It's brilliant.
Crazy. Yeah, it's so good. And then he screams at him, and then it just sets the whole third act in motion, which is insane. It's fucking insane.
We'll get to that. So the whole thing, it's so fascinating because he's done that call, and it's just planted this sort of thing in Meg Ryan's brain, because it's that bit where she's taken Bill Pullman to meet the family, got all that comedic, that great interplay where the other guy, I'm allergic to bees.
We'll spray you. Just little throwaway lines that are
Bill Pullman's sneezing and all this sort of stuff, and then she's trying on the wedding dress, and it's but it's the moment when her mom's like, magic, right? And you just, it's not even said, it's just in Meg Ryan's eyes a little bit. It's not even focused, or there's not a musical cue or anything. It's just this little seed is planted that there isn't quite the magic. I mean, on paper, Bill Pullman's great, and they get on.
Well, she goes through the whole thing about how they met, and it's they ordered a similar sandwich. That was it.
Yeah.
What are the chances of people ordering?
Yeah, she says it in this
Who else would like lettuce and tomato on their sandwich?
Sounds like the worst fucking sandwich, by the way. Just lettuce, tomato, bread.
Yeah. Horrible. Yeah,
they just have terrible taste in sandwiches. But yeah, then that sets up her hearing on the radio, like you said, the other people listening. But then it's like it kind of works that, you know, sometimes in romantic comedies, the women are always like a creative director of this, or, you know, they run their cupcake that, or it's always something. Whereas in this case, she just works at the Baltimore Sun.
Yeah.
You know, she you know, and because she's, you know, they're talking about, she didn't even bring it up. Rosie O'Donnell is talking about a story that's broken because they crashed the phone lines of 2,000 women trying to get Tom Hanks's number. And she's like, oh yeah, no, I heard that. And it's just, it grows kind of organically, that with her little like obsession with it and her questioning of it. And then the fact that, you know, Rosie O'Donnell calls up going, he's on the radio, he's on the radio. And you've got that great scene where she's hiding in the cupboard.
Yeah, it's great.
It's just, it's brilliantly done. It avoids, I think,
it feels so effortless.
Yeah, that's it.
It is. Yeah, it just like it's so smooth. There's no like we said with other movies, there's really no wasted time in this. It just goes. And it works. It works really well.
And how? It's well, because it's quite, and it's I was sort of reading about like that inspired the writer, and he's like that things like people hiring, you know, private detectives and stuff, and she kind of like, you know, she uses her
when she uses the internet.
Yeah. That kind of, that's more intranet. That sort of newspaper intranet. At least
every other line of code, she's like, "Would you like to print this?" I'm like, "No, man." I just said no. Strike Y to print.
But at the same time, like, she's using that word processor or whatever the hell it is. But, you know, in the previous scene, she was writing the letter with a freaking typewriter to give you that kind of. We were in that middle time when the offices still had typewriters and had computers.
But
Another
still,
movie
the kids
that could
can
solve with an email.
Still, the children are able to like order, you know, plane tickets on the internet.
Oh my God, that was
which blew my mind.
Well,
that was crazy.
It's because
it was even crazier. It was even crazier is both those kids, Adam Driver. Like just so talented,
portrayed brilliantly by young Adam Driver. The fact that he can do both of that at the same time was incredible.
Nuts.
But it's because, like, I remember, because my parents were travel agents as well, so it's kind of like you were sort of dialed into just that. You know, it's not like an internet, but you had access to ticket booking systems and everything else. And
is that what her mother?
Young girl is.
Is that what her mother? Did or okay.
Yeah. So her parents do that, and they're travel agents.
Didn't catch that because they introduced this young girl character seemingly out of nowhere. You know, it's like Tom Hanks goes into the room and they're listening to a Beatles record backwards with her, and she's kind of an asshole.
That's such that funny scene is because, you know, his son's getting some play.
Yeah, well.
And he's like, that's when he goes down. He's like, all right, because it was that great scene where he's talking to Rob Reiner about like, you know, the game is. When was the last time he goes? Nixon was president. You know, like, and so he goes, it's changed a little bit, and it's like, you know, it's so funny to watch it now, considering how much it's changed as well. You know, with online dating,
women like cute butts.
Yeah, how's my butt? Is it? You know, no, it's cute, and it's like tiramisu. It's like, what's that? And he goes, oh, you're gonna love it. Tell me, some girl's gonna ask me to do it to her, and I'm not gonna know what it is. I was like, such a great.
It's crazy to think in a world where Tom Hanks wouldn't know what tiramisu is.
But it's like, hey man, it was
a well-to-do architect in Chicago.
It was new, baby. Yeah. Tiramisu hadn't become the thing that it is today. But then, it's that bit where he picks up his Rolodex, and it's such a funny call because he doesn't really say anything. He's always just she's saying, "Yeah, at 7:30."
She's so excited for him to call. Yeah.
But also just because she's taking charge.
Right,
you know, He's not used to this. And I think it's so funny that the way it's played out, that you don't hear her. He doesn't really get to say anything. He's always just, 7:30. And right, I'll meet you there. Okay.
And it goes against literally everything he was talking to his son about in the prior scene, because he's like, no, you only go for drinks. That way you can get out. You can, and you can always have dinner later. And like everything he's saying completely backfires immediately.
And then when he sits down, like he's exhausted after that call. It's only like a 30-second phone call. He's like, oh, God's sake.
I think that's what really sells the movie is there's so many instances like that feel so real, like stuff like have really happened to people. And it lets you buy sort of the magical coincidences that happen later in the movie. Because we've all known guys who are like, nah, I only go, I'm only interested in chicks who like look like this and do this. This is my rules on a date. And the moment another girl like shows them any kind of attention, those rules just go out the window. They're like, yeah, whatever you want, babe. Yeah, sure. Like, it's just, it felt so real.
I also like that the sort of the quasi almost girlfriend character is kind of like Bill Pullman, is that she's not she's great. Her only little thing is, she's got a slightly annoying laugh.
It's pretty fucking annoying.
Yeah, but it's like
It's
Bill
pretty
Pullman's
annoying.
thing is, he's got allergies. It's like,
but as a typical man, he's like, I'm willing to look past that in order to get laid.
Yeah.
I do like that moment where he's kind of saying that because his son is being such a dick.
Yeah.
To her, like he's being an amusing dick, and he's explaining. He's like, look, she does these things with her hair. I don't understand, but these are things that I'm willing to explore.
Yes.
You try somebody on, you see how they fit, kind of thing. But then in that moment, and it's just again like Will, you were saying, it helps you buy things later on. Is that when he sees her and he's like, there's no such thing as love at first, and then she walks by and he's just taken with her in the same way that she was taken when she heard him talking about his wife, and so it just. All these little things that they keep locking eyes, and then later on, when she's fundamentally stalking the guy, but at the same time, you don't get that weird, icky feeling. You get that sweet feeling, right?
Yeah. It's funny how, the way she's like looking up and investigating him, flying out to, try to find him. It does toe that line where like just 1 or 2 degrees more this way, and we're in Basic Instinct territory.
There's a Basic Instinct. No, I'm sorry, it's not Basic Instinct. It's what's the other one? The Glenn Close one. Fatal Attraction. He's got a Fatal Attraction line.
Yes.
Movie.
Yes, that's it.
Scared the shit out of every man in America.
Yeah, every man.
Yes.
But then it's funny though, because if you imagine, I was thinking, like, if the movie was 5 minutes longer, there's a really awkward conversation in the cab. About well, how did I see you? Well, actually, I looked you up and I flew out, and it's like,
even that elevator ride down is going to be real weird. Kid just standing there like
tell the story wrong, and anyway, bye, Annie, get in the car.
And I like that it just kind of it ends with that because it leaves it up. You never know what's going to happen. They could end up fucking hating each other.
Oh no, I love that. I love the end. I love it all. So then, I mean, it gives you that, when you get into any romantic comedy, it's a will they, won't they, then they get together, then you have the end of Act 2 thing, pushes them apart. This whole thing is just, will they? Will they ever? And I'm like, why more movies don't do it? I guess it's because they're like, well, Sleepless in Seattle did it. We can't fucking do that. You know what I mean? Because they did it perfectly.
Yeah. So they just go back to the tried and true kind of typical arc.
I mean, they share 2 minutes of screen time.
Yeah. I honestly, for some reason in my mind thought this entire thing took place in Seattle, but in reality it's Seattle, Boston, Seattle, Chicago, Baltimore, and New York. Yeah.
That's a lot.
I thought they meet at the Space Needle, man. You don't even see the Space Needle in this movie.
I had that thought too. I was like, I distinctly remember them meeting at the Space Needle, but that doesn't make any sense.
Was the Space Needle not built? What was I thinking?
Dude,
you get a great shot of the Twin Towers.
There was one shot of the Space Needle when they were driving with their car, but I thought it was on the poster too. That way, like the Empire State Building is like, because it's the whole unfair to remember thing and stuff.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like as I was watching the movie, I'm like, oh, this does make sense. This does match because it's been a few years since I've seen the movie. I was like, oh, right, that is the scene. I think there might have been a poster with the Space Needle on it, and that's why my brain,
my Mandela effect
that's where they
kicked
meet.
in.
Yeah.
And then you were just thinking about the Frasier thing where they'd always draw the space.
Yes, absolutely. I was just watching Frasier. Is actually
towards the end. I dovetailed. I went right into season 1, episode 1 of Frasier.
Yeah,
obviously. No.
Actually, they've just brought out the new season of Frasier.
I don't know about that. Although my roommate works at Paramount and has been on that set. So
nice. Yeah, I was just not to keep dwelling on Frasier, but I mean, it's hands down the dopest apartment in any sitcom, without a doubt.
Cool.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
Everyone's like, "Oh, the Friends apartment, fuck the Friends apartment." It's Frasier's apartment is where it's at.
Frasier was also just. I go back and watch like Frasier.
It's so good.
It's
so
good. It is just pure gold. That show, absolutely incredible. Still, just to this day, absolutely holds up.
It's Frasier, The Nanny, Seinfeld, in that order.
There's So then, why do we end up? So yeah, that's right. We're talking about Sleepless in Seattle. So we're talking.
The end almost ends in this like Home Alone 2 type of way, where the boy goes to New York on his own volition. And then you have Tom Hanks realizing this, chasing after him. So you have Tom Hanks in the air, and you get that cool kind of computer graphic to show the little dotted line over there.
They're constantly using that. It's kind of like the Nora Ephron style of like Indiana Jones travel.
Yes.
You get these little dots going around. I like how that's a kind of a theme throughout the movie.
It's great.
You know, it's like it shows America, it shows the distance, it shows the travel, that he's pulling down the map, you know.
A lot of map work.
Good map work. Yes, good. But yeah, and that's a bit where it brings it all together so well. Because you get that moment that she doesn't send the letter, it turns out Rosie O'Donnell sends it. And you get all these little things, like she says something, oh, you must agree that this is the best player of all time. And it's like, Dad, but it's the boy, it's Jonah, that, like, he's like, this is the letter.
Yeah. I love that she doesn't realize that the boy is the one writing the letters, and Rosie was like, maybe he's just a shitty writer.
You sound neat.
I remembered, and maybe I definitely misremembered. I thought there was a lot more like letter writing back and forth between Meg Ryan and the kid.
Yeah, it's just the one.
Or am I thinking of You've Got Mail? Like, did that?
Yeah, I think you're getting You Got Mail in this mixed up. Yeah,
do they fall in love
easy
with
enough
Space
to do.
Needle? And You've Got Mail. I've never actually seen that one.
Oh,
is it any good?
I remember it. I remember seeing it in the theater. I mean, it's very similar to this, but with email.
Yeah, it's worth a watch, I'd say, because I saw it not too long ago. It's worth checking out.
Yeah.
I
don't think it does anything better than this does, really.
No.
I remember I was reading that they call it something else, like, you know, there's mail or something like that, but they realized that whoever it was, AOL or Google or whatever, hadn't actually copywritten You've Got Mail.
They couldn't spell the sound that the AOL modem thing made, so they just went, you got mail.
It's a great movie. What's it called?
Yeah.
How do you spell that? Nah, don't worry about it.
But like what I love and always remember is kind of like the boy has gone to New York. He's got himself to the Empire State. He's walking around. You got that, again, great shot of him walking around. Are you Annie? And then you get the helicopter shot. They actually got permission. Quite interesting story is basically like Nora Ephron knew sort of an assistant to the guy that owned the building who was currently in prison for some reason. I think a tax evasion or something. So got a message to him. So they shut down for 6 hours. So that's why you get a few shots of Jonah.
Oh, wow.
On the actual, like, you can tell that they are there on the Empire State. And then at the end, when you got the actual scene, that's actually a set built inside an old naval base in Seattle, because there were no sound stages. But it was just like kind of like, that's why you get this, you know, that very cool shot of, you can see that young actor, and then it just, you know, a helicopter shot goes around the Empire State. Wow.
Where do you think Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan go after this movie? Like, do they go to Baltimore? Do they go back to Seattle? Do they go to Chicago?
She's going to go work for the Seattle Sun Times or something like that. like she's definitely got to. I think, I don't know. I mean, I just think maybe they bang quickly while they leave the kid in the cab, and then they go on about their life.
All right.
I thought you meant, like, where do they go, like, right after they get down to the bottom floor? And I was going to say, Katz's Deli is there. If you don't go to Katz's Deli, like, what are you even doing?
But it's that what I like is that because all this stuff's coming together, and it's almost like, again, you just don't care that Bill Pullman is just so okay with it. It's like, you got to go.
It's crazy. Like, you would normally never see that in a character. He's just like, you're right.
He's just
I don't want someone to settle for me, and I don't want to be that person.
But it's the frantic Tom Hanks is so great, and you've got great musical cues with it. And it's when he comes kind of running out the airport and up to the taxi stand, he just jumps the queue and he goes, look, money.
So good. Manic Tom Hanks is so great.
So good. Manic Tom Hanks is my favorite Tom Hanks. He's fucking great.
Yeah. More so than anything else. I think that's in line. But you really feel like even him sitting on the airplane, like, he's just kind of like, he's so antsy because he's like, fuck, my son is in. That's so crazy to think about, that your 8-year-old kid is just alone by himself walking around the city, potentially walking into Donald Trump.
I was gonna say the same thing.
The kid is wearing almost the same exact outfit as Kevin McAllister in Home Alone 2. It's wild.
You are not wrong. And I also just got to appreciate how they just keep it going. How they keep just missing, like, in the lifts and things like that. I also like that it's like, the nicest security guards in New York.
Yeah.
All work at the Empire State, and it's like I always remember it. I was waiting for it. It's when she comes up, you know, she's like, he goes, "Sorry, ma'am, you know, there's no more. We're shut." And she's like, there's a guy, and if I don't go, I'll always wonder. And he's like, Cary Grant, right? He goes, "You know this?" He's like, "It's my wife's favorite." And he does this thing where he goes, and she goes off, and he does this like lip wobble, where it's just he does this lip wobble that's him saying something to himself or something. Just whoever the actor is in his moment, he's burnt into my memory. I love it.
I for sure thought a lot of the older, because then you have the guy who is the elevator operator as well, right?
Yeah.
I was like, they were probably both in the movie them. I'm just like, that was my thought. I'm like, it had to be. Because that movie, there's only 2 people in that movie.
Yeah.
You get that adorable ending, you know, and then we go around the Empire State, and you'll be happy to.
That was the only thing that didn't really hold up, was that really shoddy kind of matte painting of the Empire State Building.
Yeah, it was like the worst early CGI rendering of a building I've ever seen.
But this came out like almost not far before Jurassic Park, right?
It wasn't meant to be realistic. It's a map, and then fake stars shoot up into the air. You know, but
the way the building disappears, and then it's like the United States, and then it becomes stars. I was just like, way to rip off Star Trek 2, guys. Like, that's the final shot of Wrath of Khan.
But like,
it's so original.
I catch the end of the movie, and that song is going, and I'm singing along to the song. I'm
That's
like,
great.
what a just positively,
it's a great movie,
wonderful movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's where nowadays like things are just so dour, or it's too saccharine. This kind of really blends that line of like feeling really good, hitting you right in the feels, and still being very funny too.
Yeah. And honestly, because like Ryan, you were, you know, I think Will and I committed quite quickly to our movies, you know, like, but you were sort of circling other ones, and you were like, maybe I'll do Sleepless, and I'm like, dude, please do.
Yeah, I think after once you guys had decided on yours, I think it needed to do it, like to really round out the 3, because I think I was talking about another one that was like a little bit of overlap, but I'm glad I did pick this one. It's such a great movie.
Yeah,
so good. We didn't even mention Tom Hanks's actual wife is in this movie.
Yeah,
yes,
as not his wife,
right? Which is always so weird.
Wife of best friend. Actually, that's my favorite. I love that bit. It always cracks me up. That was an improvised bit between the 2 guys. So Rita Wilson talking about the movie, and she starts crying, and I love that. And it's in a chick movie, like, you know, it's not a chick movie, but he goes, "That's a real chick movie," you know. And then they start talking about the Dirty Dozen, and then they start, you know, and then you know, he's in the Jim Brown, and the bombs are going off, and it was. I love that.
That's
scene.
great. Yeah, all improv, so cool.
Yeah, so funny. I don't remember the other actor's name. Dad from Alias. That's what I always know him as.
Yeah, he's such a great character. He usually plays like a bad dude in most things.
Yeah. I think he turned up in The Flash as well, or like Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
He's great. I love him. Every time I see him, he's a great actor. I should give him his props. I'll figure that one out. But that movie. I mean, and it went on to like I was saying, it made an absolute shit ton of money. Yeah.
It was like I think I did like a $22 million budget.
Yeah, right? $21 million. It made $227 million. It was. They talk about like it was just came out. It's just straight up word of mouth. You know what I mean? They made way more money opening week they expected. It just kept making money, and they were like, "What a sleeper hit!" You know what I mean? Yeah. No one expected it, and it kind of like made Nora Ephron. I mean, she'd already done. You know, she'd had How I Met Sally. She'd had her first directorial debut. Did not go well, and then this one, it was kind of last minute that they said, "Well, why don't you?"
This was her Point Break.
Yes, absolutely. But this is when you say Nora Ephron.
And I wonder too, and then then you have like VHS rental and stuff like that. This movie just absolutely crushed it. I don't know if I think like cable was that big back then, like as far as if it was on HBO or whatever. But I'm sure this, as far as VHS rental and sales go, like this destroyed.
Yeah, and also back then cable was like we all knew one friend who was bougie enough to actually have cable. It wasn't something that everybody had. It was like, oh shit, you got cable? Yeah. Cool. Yeah. You can see boobs?
You can't go to an Ivy League school, but we can get cable.
But even like the
right.
soundtrack was #1, got nominated for Best Original Screenplay, Best Original Song. Yeah, straight up banger. Banger. Loved it.
Yep.
But, you know, let's move on. Let's go. Let's segue over to a movie that we all think is better than the reviews. Let's talk Dante's Peak. That's a movie that, of all the movies that we watched, we definitely texted about Dante's Peak the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, it was like we were all going, oh, this, oh, that, this is amazing, this is great. Special effects this, special effects that. How long has it been since you guys last watched Dante's Peak?
Ooh, 2 hours.
A while. Yeah.
No, it's been a long time. It was one of those that was on like TV all the time. So I've seen it so many times, but I haven't seen it because I've seen it so many times. I'm like, I'm not going out of my way to watch it unless I'm doing a podcast. But again, like we talked about on the Twister episode, this movie was such a big deal when it came out that there were so many like behind the scenes and featurettes on how they did all this stuff. And I really miss that kind of those like.
It's so funny. You've made me so nostalgic for those as well, because I watched exactly the same things that you did.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like you don't get that anymore because, like I said last time, it's like, oh, we're using the volume. Great.
Yeah. But it was one of those classic years, you know, that's happened many a time where it becomes a race, because you've got Volcano coming out the same year, rival studio, slightly more ridiculous premise, which is a volcano in Los Angeles.
Yes.
But now, if you like that, I will say my favorite schlocky guilty pleasure show is 911 on Fox. And then there is a spinoff called 911 Lone Star that's in Texas.
I was about to say, it's in Austin, right?
Rob Lowe. And there's an episode, Rob Lowe basically playing Chris Traeger from Parks and Rec, but as a fire chief. It sounds ridiculous, but it's the most gifable show you could ever watch. And there's an episode where, surely enough, there's like a volcano that erupts underground. And each one of these episodes starts out with like the most like just colloquial, like, hey, we're just kids, we're playing mini golf, and then the fucking earth opens. It's just the most insane shit. I can't recommend it enough. But yes,
it sounds incredible.
Back then, the studios could support 2 volcano movies.
Yeah, it kept happening. They had Armageddon and Deep Impact. You know, it's like wasn't there Mission to Mars and Red Planet?
Red,
Oh yeah. But was Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones?
Yes, Tommy Lee Jones
and Hayes.
Okay. Yes, that's right. Okay, I saw that one in theaters, but I saw Dante's Peak on video.
Yeah,
like when it first came to VHS at a friend's house, we like had rented it, and I remember being like, "Oh, this is way better." Like, but that was like the last time I had seen it. Like, I haven't seen it since.
You're saying, do you thought Dante's Peak was better than Volcano?
Yes, way better. Yeah. Because I remember seeing Volcano just being like,
this
is ridiculous, but this is kind of stupid.
Volcano
I just wasn't
entertaining, but Dante's Peak feels like an actual volcano movie.
But I will say, I can remember the one scene in Volcano more than I could recall like any scene in Dante's Peak.
The guy melting, the legs melting guy, and he throws the subway. Yeah. Everybody remembers that because everyone's like,
yeah, that's pretty rad. But
and he's like, he's just the Wicked Witch of the West. I'm melting.
Can you move your stumps faster? But then, like, the same thing happens to Ruth in this movie. So
yeah.
Oh god, I felt like that was way worse. That one was like,
I was
just watching that entire time, like,
No, I remember that. That's the scene that I remember watching the first time. I'm pretty sure I watched it on VHS at boarding school, and I remember that's the scene where everyone's like, "Oh shit!" Like,
it's pretty gnarly.
That's gnarly. Yeah, it definitely is. But yeah, okay. So again, we've done great. We've jumped all the way to the third act without even setting up anything in this movie. It's fantastic. Pierce Brosnan loves volcanoes. He's James Bond of volcanoes. Opens up in Colombia. He's escaping. I mean, Ryan, you said it. I said it too. It's like, you know how you start a movie? It literally just a volcano explodes and it says Dante. Welcome to the movie. And it's like, yeah, I'm in. Let's go. And then we get 8 minutes of sort of escape. Then he's really,
it looks like they're in Pompeii, like in this ancient time. It's fucking crazy.
And yeah, she dies. She gets hit by, some lava.
She gets rocked.
She does get rocked. Oh my God. And she doesn't just die like, she's like having a seizure, blood down her face. I'm like, dude.
Her fucking head would explode. Like
That was my thought. I was like, okay, that's molten rock. Did that go through her head? Like I watched that scene. I was like, oh, good.
No,
golly,
her brain was replaced with a molten rock, and then she
became part volcano.
A volcano. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
See, that's the sequel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dante's Peaking. But then we jump. I mean, what is it? Like years into the future? Years?
I think 4 years.
Something like that.
Yeah. And then it immediately cuts to Pierce Brosnan just rapid fire doing push-ups. Amazing. Total fucking smoke show in this movie, by the way.
Oh, he's so
insane.
Handsome. I mean, just that guy is just still
at his peak. Yeah.
He's the widower's peak.
Ooh.
But yeah, I mean, the guy's still handsome. I mean, like, did you see Black Adam? I mean, like, he's just like put a gray beard on that guy. Christ. Considering we are straight, we do constantly talk about how hot guys are in this podcast.
It's all right. Someone's
telling it like it is.
Yeah. You got to give the ladies what they want.
Pierce Brosnan.
Us talking about hot dudes. But yeah, I mean, now he's like a scorn, much like Sleepless in Seattle. He's not sleeping.
No,
just, studying his rocks.
He's doing his job. They've got Ryan's favorite thing. We've got the team. It's not just him running solo. He's got his whole.
See, now when the team is already put together, I don't like that. I need to be pre-team. I need the team to be assembled. I can't go into a movie with a team already there. I'm not into it.
So it's got to be the MacGruber. Everyone's like coming together.
Thank you. Yes.
So essentially, the end of Avengers Endgame, when everybody assembles, is just basically you just climax. Is that it? It's just the 7,000 people. Please, I can only become so erect.
Yeah. I was definitely thrown out of that theater. But yeah, I mean, listen, I love when the team gets together. Yeah?
But in this case, this is a good movie. I'm just gonna say everything on the tomatometer is wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty. Those reviews seem pretty harsh. Even
it was like 28% from critics, 30% from audience, and I'm like,
but also none of those reviews are like they're not those reviews are from 1990.
Yeah, but even then, because kind of like Twister, and Ryan and I were talking about this before we started recording, Will, but it's just kind of like Twister, it's hitting that sweet spot of using old school and new school.
Yes.
They're using some CGI to put the mountain in the background because it's shot in Idaho, but it's done very well. I'm going to say looks great. And then excellent usage of bigatures and destruction and things like that. And like big sets that are covered in ash that I'm looking at this movie going, look at that.
And it's crazy to think that, this came out after Twister, right? This was after Twister. That Twister, you still used way more CGI than this ever did. Like that Twister was mostly CGI. And they did a lot of practical stuff like with the house, but this was just almost all practical. And it just feels so grounded in that. We were talking about like where other disaster movies now, and it's just like it's all CG and it just feels flat. Like we were talking about San Andreas, for example, or dare I say a Geostorm.
Yeah, Geostorm.
I miss it's like the feeling of it's like just a little kid with two cars kind of smashing them together. Like
and
that's what I want.
Yeah. It's I think it's a similar thing. I think the way I was saying with Twister is it's the same way that I think Spielberg and Christopher Nolan do, that even if something crazy is happening, they still go, well, the camera has to be somewhere. So it's not a magical camera that's just floating in the air or giving you this stuff. When Christopher Nolan's doing Interstellar, he mounts a camera on the spaceship. It's so you're not just seeing a spaceship go by like there's a camera guy floating.
Yeah, because I think that really does, as subtle and subconscious as it may be, I think that really does either take you out of the experience or immerse you into it even more.
It quite literally grounds you. And so a lot of what's happening in Dante's Peak is we're just seeing it happen in the distance, like we're looking at it, or the camera pans up to it and it gives you this sense of scale, and we forgot about the plot because we were halfway doing it. But yes, so primarily, yes, the Dante's Peak, is a fictional town in Washington. Is it the Catskills? I can't remember. But where Mount St. Helens is also, Mount St. Helens has happened. Okay, so in the history of the movie, everyone understands that this can happen. And Linda Hamilton is the mayor of this small town, which I like how it's second. they win second place, the second most desirable place to live in America. And I love how the guy that works, or wherever it was, the motel, and Pierce Brosnan's like, who came first? He goes, I don't know, some shithole.
Yeah.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was awesome.
But yeah, it's essentially, it's a beautiful place, and it does look like a wonderful town. It was actually shot in Idaho, Wallace, Idaho.
Oh, wow.
So with the digital mountains in the background. But I'd tell you this much. I mean, Idaho's beautiful. A place where Ruth's house, that is Mirror Lake, also in Idaho. Then I'm like, dude, I thought Idaho was just nothing but potatoes rolling around everywhere. So, you know, I learned something about Idaho. Which I guess
you're gonna pick this movie when we do Idaho.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, just so we can just watch it again. But yeah, essentially what happens is they send Harry. It's Harry, right? Pierce Brosnan's character, to just go and investigate something that he does dozens of times a year. A volcano. Maybe go and check it out. Let's see what's going on. But what we're also seeing is this slow sort of like creeping build. And it was something that Roger Ebert actually sort of like almost complained about, is it took an hour for the volcano to erupt. But I really like the little creep.
We were talking to you over text, like that's kind of one of my, in these like very boilerplate disaster-y films, my favorite part about it is all of the stuff that happened, like all of the tension that leads up to the eruption, so to speak. Like you have the couple and the hot springs, and then he's testing the pH of the water and the squirrels. And like,
and Ruth's like, oh, that's been happening all over the forest and stuff like that. And just, but yeah, the bit with the couple, and I like how they sort of throw in that they're like from California. They're like,
of course, yeah.
So that's
disposable.
Fine. We can kill them. But yeah, you know, they're skinny dipping in this pool, and then the acting of that woman is like the ow of it, and it goes under the water, and it just, again, it cuts away, but you have that like the ick factor.
It'd be a horrible, like between like up on the echelon of ways to die, being consumed by some sort of lava type substance, whether it be a meteor falling through your head or just being boiled alive. It's pretty bad.
Pretty gnarly. Yeah.
This movie's not very gory, but the way people die in it is just so like unnerving and just so like, oh god.
And also great casting of the young girl, who definitely looks like it could be Linda Hamilton's daughter. She's like, they had very similar, they looked.
Yeah.
But like, so you've got Linda Hamilton separated, but she's got two kids. You've got the mother-in-law, Ruth, grandma, and sort of like, again, so much of it is, you know, Ryan, like you were just saying, like if you watch Volcano, it just kind of starts happening, and then it's just managing of the disaster and just set piece. Whereas this one, it's like Harry turns up, there's some clues, he gets concerned, his boss turns up, but it then sort of jumps 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you know, it's like they've been around, it's kind of calmed down. It's enabled Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton's characters to actually develop a relationship.
Right.
As opposed to they've known each other for a day and a half. You know what I mean? And then by the end of the movie, they're hugging and in love. And it's like, you guys literally only just met 6 hours ago. You know what I mean?
I think this is actually why I'm able to buy this movie better than like Twister, is because everything kind of happens. The timeline of like character relationships, I'm gonna go there. Like the way it builds, and like how long it takes for the actual disaster to start, does not feel as crazy to me as like Twister does. Like it just feels like when the volcano actually starts erupting, that feels like the right moment in the movie for it to start happening. Because
I get what you
once
mean.
it happens,
that's it. Yeah, that's
like dragging that out feels less and less realistic.
No, you're right. That's like the whole third act of this film. Whereas Twister, you get like little sprinklings of them just being shitty at their job, chasing smaller twisters. You're like, I want that F5.
If Twister had only had the F5, it would have been kind of what Dantes Peak does.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, so instead of it being, you know, and trust me, I love Twister, but I know what you mean, Will, and I kind of agree with what you're saying, because, I mean, and again, because I said people were complaining about it, I'm like, no, I think, like, again, watching this movie, the slow creep, and then little bits like, you know, you get the relationship for all the guys, all the volcanologists, you kind of get their friendships and their dynamics, you get the scene with the robot, you know, kind of thing, you just get my favorite like line from the movie is, the guy from True Lies, But he's like,
yeah,
coffee, jabba, 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 coffee, you know.
It was so weird. Like, how much coffee has he had?
But you get that sort of that little scene thing. It's a clever little bit of writing, but the first time she turns up, it's all plain coffees. The next time we see that scene play out, she knows all of their coffee orders. Right. You know what I mean? So it establishes this relationship, establishes time has passed. And it's like, I mean, I'm going to fight. I'm going to die. You know, this little.
No, you're right. It does work. It does work because you're right. It's all of the tension is leading up to this one volcanic event versus a Twister where it's kind of, it's already established. Little things are happening. There's really you're obviously working your way towards the big one, but you have all of the little twisters in between. Whereas this is there's just one Dantes Peak. You can only peak one time. Yeah. There's a refractory period.
And I also think it's because, and it's getting a little bit nerdy for a second, but it's the two types of volcanoes. There's like, like a dome volcano, kind of like Hawaii, where it just, lava just goes, whereas Mount St. Helens and this fictional Dantes Peak is it's a thicker kind of magma that builds up pressure. And so when it does go, it's not like, that it's coming down the mountain, it's coming at us. It just fucking explodes. Yeah. It is cataclysmic. It is massive. It's like a nuclear bomb going off. So when it goes, I mean, that's dope. I mean, I also love the little, what do we establish right at the beginning? The mine. What do we establish a third of the way through the movie? The extremely low frequency radar. All these little things. Yeah. Just a little meh. Move on.
This setup and payoff, it really works well. There's like, they did a good job. And the one thing that was so noticeable is the excessive use of Dutch angles. Yeah.
And it's all the interior shots. It's kind of weird, isn't it? But I didn't really notice it until you pointed out. I was like, oh shit, yeah.
It was jarring because usually that sets up like a feeling of unease, but it's used in these situations where they're all indoors and they're all having fun. So that didn't really make sense to me. But
it was a stylistic choice for sure. But honestly, I was like, fuck it. I was just too busy looking at Pierce Brosnan. I mean, Linda Hamilton.
One thing I really appreciated about this movie is even the asshole boss character, even his logic for why not putting the town on alert and all that. It makes it like none of his decisions feel like they're like unreasonable.
He's not like an asshole boss.
He's like, we've done this before and it ruined this town financially.
Yeah.
So you gotta be careful. Yeah.
And I really appreciate it. They went out, this movie really established like he's not the Jaws there.
Right.
He's being a very practical, level-headed guy about this. He's had experience where it went wrong. So I really, really appreciated that bit of writing.
He just got back from Antarctica and
So is it really him?
But yeah, I mean, exactly. Is that another sort of, it kind of eschews easy cliches. That when you do watch Volcano, easy cliches and stuff like that. Dantes Peak, it's got great production depth. Like because they're shooting it in a real town, and there's just, I mean, that opening scene where they're having the parade.
You kind of want to like live in that little town. Yeah. Like it looks awesome, right?
They do. They set it up. They do set it up like you understand why it is like, oh, what a lovely place to live. It was quite funny. It's like, it was very, very, it's, I know, very white. But when they finally have like the city meeting, I was playing Where's Waldo and I go, oh, they managed to find two people of color, two black people, man and woman, either side front row. Just also, it's like, none others, everybody else, purely white. It was crazy. But it's like, all right.
But what you're missing is by the end of this movie, everyone is covered in all of the ash and soot from the volcano. That
we're all the same, man.
That's right, man.
That's the message of the movie.
You're welcome.
But it does is it sets up a really nice combination that when it all does start going wrong, instead of it being, again, I can't believe I'm do this, Will, but Twister is like, here's another Twister, here's another Twister. In this case, we've established that Ruth lives up on the mountain. She's never wanting to leave. We've established that she's got the kids, but because she's a single mom and she's busy, the kids are sometimes left at home. So the kids, now things are going wrong. They rush to get the kids. The kids have gone to get Ruth. They then have to go to get Ruth. And so it's very clever about constantly drawing out like this chase. We're always trying
man. And that scene of those two kids the scene of the two kids driving the car, I was like, oh my god, it's like you get the boys like driving with this, and she's fiddling with the radio, and he's don't touch that. I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, oh man, that road with the it was crazy.
Well, we get to that bit when we're finally like they've got the kids, and then we got Ruth, and like it gives us the second of like, oh, take a breath, and I do like that. No, lava just comes through the wall. No breath. Keep going. You're still in danger. And then it's like, all right, well, let's get in across the river, which is now acid, and we've got a metal boat. Brilliant.
And just when you think, because in my first thought, I'm like, oh man, it's going to eat through the boat, but wouldn't it also eat through the rudder of the boat? That's when that happens. I'm like, oh crap. Mm-hmm. Oh my god.
And that doesn't explain why the engine dies. I mean, surely it would just be like, meh. But not going to get into that.
I don't know. I don't do boats.
I'm not a boat biologist. Well,
it's like, why not just stay close to the edge? Anyway, but it's the you get that the row your boat.
Perfect.
row your boat, and it's like
he wraps his arm in his jacket, and he's doing this, and then Ruth. I mean, they're like 5 feet away. She's like, "Fuck it," and she just jumps out.
Yeah, that's the grandma. The grandma in her, and that's that bit. That's the bit we were referencing earlier. Is that bit where Ruth. The grandma jumps out and drags the boat to the platform, the pier.
But then doesn't get onto the pier.
No,
she tries to.
She keeps walking and just screaming in pain. And they got that, like, I like that bit where they run off the pier as it collapses as well. You know what I mean? So
maybe like she knew the thing was going to collapse. Of course.
Excellent. Well, that was the thought. That was the thought I had when they got onto the pier. Is I'm like, wait, that's made of wood. Wouldn't that? And then the moment I had that thought, it collapsed. I'm like, see,
this movie works, man.
It does. It does.
Yeah, and then it's in kind of like the slow death as well. Like he's carrying her, and then they're gonna just have to leave her on.
And then they show her. Well, oh man, she's not. Oof.
No. It's gnarly. Then I do like that Pierce Brosnan is good at hot wiring trucks. That was convenient. But then you get again that moment of like, oh okay, and then now you got to drive across lava.
But then the kid, like, they're like, is this gonna work? He's like, I don't know.
It is. We'll be fine, kids.
If I go fast enough, like, would that work? I don't know.
For a second, I just want to talk about that scene. How do they do that? Because you see them break into the lava, you see it glowing orange, you see fire on the wheels, and then I'm like going, how did they shoot that? I was watching it closely going, I mean, it's not lava, but you're watching going,
right?
How the fuck?
They probably just lit the wheels on fire,
and then it's glowing orange as well. I thought it was brilliant. And it's that kind of, again, to go back to what you're saying, Ryan, that like, nowadays it'd be some kind of CG thing.
Of course, it would just, your eyes would be glazed over just looking at all of this shit happening scene after scene. There's no impact. Whereas this, you've got them, they have to get across this lava to get to the bridge. Oh, wait, what happened to their dog? Their dog is also out there, and he has to jump onto the back of the fucking truck while they're driving through the lava. Yeah. It's great.
And then, like, the tires burst and stuff. I like all these little things. And then we get into, like, it's great. Is like we talked about at the beginning, is the bigatures of this movie. Let's take that moment to really appreciate how real it makes things feel. And it's like, and they still do it. Lord of the Rings did it. Even the Matrix like sequels, they did it. They build these big bigatures, blow them up, because there's nothing better than something big collapsing. But it's like,
well, it just looks way more real too. Yeah, at that scale.
I was always wondering when I was younger is how the hell they got that amazing shot of the two Humvees and the van going onto the bridge.
That was crazy.
The background of, because the dams kind of burst. And only recently on a YouTube video saw that those are Humvees the size of the table in front of me, and they're on rails. Like I was like, what? Like what? That's amazing.
Well, because they couldn't pull like little Matchbox cars with a fishing line. It wouldn't look as good.
I could have put money on those being real Humvees.
Yeah. They would, like, nowadays, like, depending on I'm sure if they were to make a movie like this, the budget would be insane, and they could easily do it practically. They could launch fucking Humvees, but no, they would still use computers to do it all.
Hey man, budget $116 million. This was not a cheap movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely a lost art, the building these, bigatures, these, large miniature sets. And I was most impressed by the dam because, like I was telling you guys, you can't miniaturize water. It's just something you just can't do. So you have to build them to scale enough to where it doesn't read as being odd to like your eye. So they have to be pretty massive. Yeah. And I was very, very impressed.
Really good. Like I said, I mentioned on our text there, like there were only bits where you can tell the way the wood was moving, but
even then there's the trees and the debris and everything in that water. It had weight, it had danger. It was just it looks so good. Like I was, I mean, I own this movie. Like I said, I love this movie.
Brag.
But like, but watching it again was just like I just appreciated the artistry. It's on this.
Yeah. And that's the best part about doing this podcast too, is like we talk about this all the time. So you've seen that movie 100 times, but now you're watching it anew and you're like, oh man, like, how did they do this? This was so good. I wish there were still featurettes where they would tell me how they did these things.
I still to this day and I've talked to my friends about this. Like if we do like a space movie like that involves spaceships, I told them I want to do a model. I don't want to do a CG ship because there's just something, and part of it was a couple of years ago, I went to a screening of Star Wars with John Dykstra and all those original guys in attendance. And they had like their original, the Dykstra cam there showing like how they got those shots. And I was just like, there's just something that's too cool about it. And I'm like, I think it would be best to go back, obviously make space and stuff that can be CG, but there's something about like the model work.
No, 2001 Star Wars, all of them. I mean, like, look at the way the Millennium Falcon was. Look at the way the X-Wings look. I actually had the pleasure, because I had DVDs, so I had the original Star Wars before they got screwed up by George Lucas. But like, I had the pleasure of actually like showing my buddy Brad, like about 15 years ago, he'd never seen Star Wars. And I'm like, he was just, and the thing is, he'd been really like resistant to movies. Yeah. And I'd had he'd got involved, he started hosting this movie show with me. And I was like, all right, man, just trust me. You're going to watch this movie. You're going to watch this movie. And I had just 10 bangers in a row. He's like, wow, I never would have thought I'd like a movie like this. I was like, all right, buddy, we're watching Star Wars. We get to the end and he just keeps going, 1977?
Crazy, right?
And I'm like, yeah, man, 1977. He's like, but I mean, wow. I mean, look, Blade Runner as well.
Alien too. I mean,
100%. If you go the model route, it just feels real. 100%. If you do space movie, do goddamn models, man. Do stop.
Yeah.
Unless you have the budget, just fucking go to space, man.
Just be Tom Cruise. Just qualify.
That's the easiest way.
As an engineer, go into space. That's it. That's
they did it for whatever the last Fast and Furious was.
Yeah, Fast 9.
The best space movie, some say.
Yeah. That was an embarrassingly entertaining movie.
He goes ludicrous speed.
Ludicrous speed for sure. But then, then also love this movie for what it does as well, is that it keeps that pressure on. You realize that now they're in danger. Everyone else, they drop in, we got everybody out. The only real casualty is the not asshole boss who,
dies pretty. Wilhelm. He gets Wilhelm, but he's like holding onto the thing, and he might as well have just gone.
Yeah, just slid himself on the way out.
Like, oh god.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Another, again, like you said, it's not a violent, gory film, but what a horrendous way to die.
True, but
nobody dies pleasantly in this movie.
No,
it's all awful.
No.
But we get to that point where they've got the truck that's now got its tires are burst. He grabs the extremely low frequency radar, so we know he's got some sort of plan. But then, time runs out, and when that mountain goes, I mean, there is a shot of them driving in the foreground with the town, and this just the pyroclastic cloud just coming over that hill. And just coming into the city, I'm like, again, I was looking at it going, whoa, like the smoke effects, the everything. It's tangible. You could feel it. But it feels massive as well. It feels gargantuan. I think again, to go back to what you're saying, Ryan, feels way better.
You get that sense of atmosphere that you just don't get with, most digital scenes. This just felt fucking awesome.
I think it also helped is a funny word, but I think because Mount St. Helens had gone off, and so like we knew what. Yeah, so it was sort of like, and unfortunately another comparison, but like after 9/11, we knew what buildings collapsing looked like.
Mhm.
So after that, buildings collapse in movies looked a lot more real. And so this was kind of the same thing. Is because of Mount St. Helens, we understood what that looked like, and I think that really aided with this movie and what it was going.
You're saying this movie caused 9/11.
That's exactly where I was going with that. Where are the writers?
That's the last episode of the podcast. Everyone. Thank you very
much. I was gonna say it's crazy that they were able to time the explosion of Mount St. Helen with this movie and just utilize that.
That's synergy, man.
But I tell you, it's a good point, Will. It's a good point. I'm like, I think that's a big part.
Definitely helped. Yeah, like
it definitely had. I think because we'd seen the pictures, we'd seen the video, we'd seen the footage and the photos. That you're bang on the money on that one. Knowing that the actual effect of what it can have, the actual sort of like that's pretty cool. But then it also sets up that extra little, act at the end of the crash the car into that the abandoned mine. As the pyroclastic cloud hits, it's just absolute disaster. And then we sort of slow down into this darkness. And then we get one, trapped in the mine, and then two, him getting the gnarliest broken arm, like the jagged bone coming out. Awesome. But then he's getting in the car and it collapses and now he's trapped. And then we realize that they're there for 2 days. So it just gives us that extra 10 minutes at the end of the movie, that extra drag out of, are they going to be okay? Who's going to survive? And then we get that, again, great scene, hundreds of sort of extras, great production value. I mean, again,
it's the second best mineshaft scene in a movie I've watched this week.
Absolutely. The only thing about the end of this movie that I think was a little cheesy was when Pierce Brosnan was lowered into the lava and gave the thumbs up to Linda Hamilton. That was, I don't know about that part, but.
Well, it was produced by Gail Ann Hurd, who also produced him.
I did see that. Yeah. I mean, all this movie was just fun times all around, man. Like I appreciate how much, I mean, it's for as absurd of a plot as it is, it still felt very grounded and like could really happen because, it has, but it didn't it wasn't so over the top. Like you saying, the violence is the things that happen to people are as horrific as they are. You really don't see a lot. It's still just devastating. It's a great show don't tell kind of,
it's the opposite of a Roland Emmerich movie that relishes in that kind of destruction. This is much more. We don't want to be near the destruction.
No. Like 2012, right?
Or The Day After Tomorrow, or.
Yeah, I mean, I will say 2012 special effects are pretty good. Like when LA starts falling to pieces and stuff like that, I will give it credit. But at the same time,
but how many times are you going to see that? Like
Roland Emmerich did it again. He does love destroying America.
He does.
He just say,
yes,
I'm going to find a new way to just destroy everything and blow up the White House. It's going to be great.
And then someone else made Geostorm and he killed himself. Probably, I don't know.
It's the most Emmerich movie that's not.
I'm shocked it wasn't. It's like someone took all of Roland Emmerich's movie and dumped them into Chat GPT and it spit out Geostorm, but it's fucking great.
Geostorm.
That's why he's retired from filmmaking. He's like, I cannot do it. I cannot top it.
Geostorm is, oh man, so good. It's bad. Like it's terrible. But it's just, I got so many questions. I mean, I think we live watched it once or something during the pandemic. We were all texting each other. But it was just like,
we watched it before you moved. We all watched it at your house.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, yes.
That was after you and I did a fucking live text version of it. Great. It's good fun. It's just one of those you got to watch with a group of people.
You got to, and you definitely got to be drinking when you watch Geostorm. If you're listening and you haven't watched Geostorm, it is by no means a good movie, but it is a great time to watch with other people. Yeah. But I tell you what is a good movie, a legitimately good movie, a great watch is First Blood. Let's talk First Blood. Let's go with not Rambo, just straight up First Blood. And what was always interesting to me is that, Ryan's got he's talked about in his history, he's always watched the sequels first. And I remember at this time, my dad, we'd always get to go to the video store once a week and we'd rent one or two movies. And we rented Rambo 3 first because it had such a banger of a cover, man. And he's absolutely jacked, man.
That's probably I'm trying to think what the first Rambo I saw was, and it's Hot Shots Part 2.
Yeah. Oh my God. We loved Hot Shots Part
Oh.
I mean, the bit with the candy.
Yeah.
On his hand.
But it's where he's holding the M60, the machine gun, and it just pans down and he's like up to his waist in
Standing
bullet
in
casings.
bullets.
God, I gotta watch that again.
He fires the chicken. You know?
Chicken. Yeah, that's
Let's just talk about that. No, let's talk about as well, because I watched Rambo 3, then the next week we watched Rambo 2, well, Rambo First Blood Part 2, and then the week after that we watched First Blood. And even
you went backwards.
Yeah, I went backwards. But even as a teen, like when you get to the first one, you're like, you know, because in the third one he solves the Cold War by working with the Taliban. In the second one, he wins the Vietnam single-handedly. And then in the first one, it's just this.
He's just a man.
Yeah, he's just the guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was his first movie since Rocky, the Rocky movies, that hadn't tanked. Like, and it's funny because I always see these posters of Sylvester Stallone in movies I've never fucking heard of. These random Sylvester Stallone movies. There are so many of them from this period of, like, you know, the 70s and 80s that you're just like, what is this movie?
Well, those are all pornos.
Yeah, right. Kitty and whatever.
A couple of them are.
Yeah, Kitty and the Scout or something like that. But this movie is based off a book. Notoriously changed the ending. And then, of course, notoriously Stallone got in and edited it, like got in and wrote his own version. But I actually argued that the changes he made work better.
Yeah, this is a fantastic fucking movie for sure.
Yeah, it's so good. I think, honestly, I think I had seen the cartoon first as a kid.
I had the Commodore 64 video game.
Nice.
Yeah, the second one.
So that was my exposure to Rambo. And then I think I saw 2 or 3 on TNT or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like middle school that like I checked out the original movie, and I'm like, this is essentially a different character. Like the character that's in 2 and 3 and like all the others.
Oh, all of that goes
that's
right
a
out the
different
window.
guy. Yeah, that is just a different franchise.
What
There's a
PTSD?
reason.
I love war.
There's a reason MacGruber works so well as a parody.
Yeah.
The opening, I should say, the opening where he's just a monk, but everyone, it's so it pastiches this so well.
Yeah. Hot Shots Part 2 as well.
Yeah.
Yes. That justifies the Rambo sequels.
When you got the background,
that it gave us Hot Shots Part 2.
The CIA women in the background, and like all the monk that takes a shot, he's like jacked, and he's flexing in the background.
Yeah, that's.
I have to watch Hot Shots Part 2.
It's so good. It's great.
It's awesome.
Oh my god!
But the fact that this one is so grounded, like again, rewatching this, I'm like, God, dude, this is a fantastic movie. It looks great. I love that it's basically just Predator but reversed.
Yeah.
And I never like watching it again. I'm like, why is Brian Dennehy's character such a fucking dick to him? Like, he's like, I get that he's a drifter, but it's there was kind of. And unfortunately, I didn't get time to really look it up before I got here, but I remember reading a really good, I think it was from a book I read about kind of this time in American history about post-Vietnam. There was a notion that average people like cops and civilians really harassed Vietnam vets and did not like specifically Vietnam vets. And there was like I said, I wish I had the info in front of me, but essentially it was like, that's not really what was going on. This movie helped popularize that idea. Yeah. But that's not really what was happening. It was more like, there were definitely people who protested soldiers and, you know, during the war and called them baby killers. That definitely did happen. But post-war, it was more that people were upset with the government and stuff. And so this movie kind of came about. Yeah. This movie came about because of the idea that, people are harassing Vietnam vets. And so that was kind of like, that's why Brian Dennehy's character is like, I specifically don't like you because you served in Vietnam. Right.
But Ryan, you referenced it, and you only see little context clues to it in the movie. Like we noticed that you can see the.
Yeah, I think there was supposed to be a bit more because Brian Dennehy's character served in the Korean War, and I think there was a bit of tension that once vets came back from Vietnam, that the survivors of the Korean War were kind of like pushed aside. They're like, we got a new war we're talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was a bit in that in the movie, but they kind of.
Well, honestly, America has constantly kept rebooting wars. You know,
Yeah.
there's always a new one. You know, the Gulf War I was pretty good. You know, Gulf War II, not such a big fan.
Yeah, our government definitely does not do a great job of like, you know, once soldiers are kind of done, just kind of the government would rather just forget about them. Like, well, they're not serving anymore.
But
so
that's what this movie is fundamentally about. When it comes down to it, it is about a guy suffering from PTSD, and he's feeling lost. The movie opens a beautiful shot, you know, just that long shot of him walking down. It comes around. You got like the beautiful lake, mountains. He walks up and he's all awkward and Sylvester Stallone. Hey, it was my buddy, and he's all this stuff in my pocket. Anyway, here's his picture. And then, you know, he's looking for his buddy, who it turns out is the last of his special forces crew. Everybody else is dead. And Delmar, I believe his name is, and it finds out Delmar died of cancer. He was the biggest guy, but Agent Orange killed him. So he's just literally lost, figuratively lost, and he's just wondering. But yeah, it sets up that there's this small town. I think it's called Hope. It's an imaginary town, but it was shot in Hope, Canada, British Columbia. But it sets up, you know, the sheriff comes out, Brian Dennehy, who kills it in this movie.
Yeah.
Kills it.
Oh,
Big Tom Callahan.
But we don't, it gets it right to the point as he comes out and on the walk to his car, he
says hi to every single person.
And knows their names.
Yeah.
So it's like he's very protective of his little town. But yeah, he just sees a guy, look, you know, walking with that jacket, you know, with that flag. I go, yeah, he's a fucking veteran. And
right.
He's like, all right, get in my car. I'll make sure you get where you need to go, which is anywhere but here. And he's like, can I get something to eat? And he goes, yeah, there's a diner 30 miles up the road. He's fucking walking 30 miles. Yeah, you'll be there in 13 hours. Enjoy your food, dude. Dick.
God, yeah, just the biggest jerk right off the bat.
Yeah, this movie fucking goes from 0 to 6. Like after the scene of him, you know, confronting his old platoon mates, I think it was his mother, I assume. Like this movie just hits the gas. Like he gets that interaction with Brian Dennehy, drops him off the bridge. Stallone's like, man, fuck this. He turns around, starts walking back. Brian Dennehy looks in the mirror. He turns around and becomes this whole kerfuffle. And
it becomes that cop that you often get in movies is that just. And again, you see videos of this for real, but it's the worst kind of cop, the one with a huge ego issue, the one that can't have his authority challenged. All right, I'm arresting you for not doing what I told you to do by being.
It was upsetting to see because this still happens. Like, if God forbid, if John Rambo was a person of color, this would be a very different movie.
It would have been a 5-minute movie because stop resisting. Oh, he's dead.
So this is back when a cop treating just a random person like this was considered a twist. Yeah.
But then you go back to the sort of the sheriff's department, and the only nice guy is a very young Caruso, David Caruso. But pretty much everyone else is a dick. I mean, then there's the Uber dick, the one with the mustache. He's definitely like I said, I text you, he definitely wants to fuck John Rambo to teach him a lesson. Like it was just this underlying, dude, just get a room already. Like you get him naked and just he was just so creepy.
He can't wait to harass somebody. Like this is like makes his
and that's
day.
The thing, like maybe this town is like so. But they never established this. But maybe the town is like so sleepy. This is like it's called Hope. It's a town where no crime has ever happened. Yeah. And then you get this one little drifter who just stumbles into town, and then
they're like looking for any excuse to die.
Yeah,
but then, but then, kind of like you're saying, like Ryan, and it's very suddenly jarring. Is he's just been quiet, and you can see it's kind of holding it together. But it's when they start just really pushing him too far, and they've got him like held up, and then you suddenly have this flashback to him being tied up. Suddenly he's in Vietnam, and then it flashes back. And then they're holding up the razor to shave him, and then it cuts to him being cut by the knife, and it's like, oh my god! Like, and it's just these quick moments, quick flashes, and then you have that moment when he enters a full-on panic attack, essentially, and just is afraid for his life, and in that rage, just takes out the entire sheriff's department. You've noticed how he's kind of planned his escape, but he's not a machine. He's not unstoppable. He's afraid.
He's a feral animal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my favorite part about that is after he just single-handedly destroys everyone in that police precinct, as he's running on his way out, there's a cop that's just walking in holding some packages.
Yeah.
And he just like clotheslines. He's like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" Oh, shit.
Yeah. I want to see the movie from that guy's point of view.
I think he really like broke his nose. That's why he's.
Well, there's the one guy with the broken nose, the real broken nose. Yeah. But then we also get is that you notice there's a lot of Sly Stallone doing stunts. Like he pulls that guy off the bike.
Yeah.
Like
he's riding that bike. Yeah.
And then gets on it. I mean, of course, then there's some great stunt riding by whoever they got for that. There's an excellent little scene, that car chase scene with and it's brilliant. There's a bit where you're like, oh, you're going to see it's a stunt rider. So he just pops a wheelie, so he blocks his face the entire way past camera. You're like,
that's so funny. I for sure thought that. I was like, oh, I can't believe he did this. I did not even think for a second it was a stunt double. There's bits where you can see where it's definitely a guy wearing a helmet with a wig over it. Like when he's riding through the woods, but still, I was like, damn, that's fucking awesome.
It's. I mean, like that's the thing is that you get into it, and you find out because he also that stunt, amazing stunt, the guy on the cliff jumping, you know, like in the tree. Stallone said, "Oh, I can do some of it." Broke a couple of his ribs. You know, doing it kind of thing. It's like, dude, the stuntmen exist for a reason, man. But at the same time, you're watching it, and you watch Rambo 3, and it feels like a movie that was made by $1 bajillion. And you watch First Blood, and it's like, it feels small.
That's what I love. That's what I love about it. I miss movies like that, and that's why I said it became like a template for a very mid to low budget action thriller. You know,
15 mil budget.
Yeah,
you know, so that's like, I mean, it's awesome. Big, but not big.
No,
you know, it's big when you think about
the time.
15 million is not nothing, but it's doing what I always enjoy is it's being shot in a real town, on a real mountain, in a real place, in a real this and a real that, and it's like, you know, they're cold. You know, you can tell. I mean, I think the most interesting.
It was exhausting watching them run through the forest, like watching him run up this, like scurry up these like ravines is crazy.
My fun little, most interesting little fun fact that I found is that rotten piece of canvas that he finds, that he cuts with the knife and he binds himself together, it was actually a rotten piece of canvas that they found during the production, and that he still has it.
He still has it. Yeah.
Sylvester still has it. I was like, wow, I love that. He's like, no, man, just use that. He's like, all right, let's do it. This is gonna work. But it does it.
Yeah.
The sort of the survival skills aspect in it all. But for me, my favorite part, I think it has to be everybody's favorite part, is when the 6 or 7 sort of sheriff's department guys walk into the forest, and it's just he's picking them off one by one.
It's literally Predator before Predator, and it was crazy.
You pointed out the music.
I know the music. It sounded like it was. Oh man, it was.
It's Jerry Goldsmith.
It was Jerry Goldsmith, yeah. But man, I was like, it just feels like. I mean, he's in the woods. It's just like a prequel to Predator. It's awesome.
Yeah, the only thing you're missing is the heat vision.
Yeah. It's so good.
I loved it. Yeah, and then definitely, like you were saying, filming outdoors on real locations, not on a soundstage. Yeah. It's the kind of production that
looks like a nightmare.
I would hate to be on. I would not want to be there at all.
Like
having shot practically everything I've ever filmed outdoors and in the wilderness, I'm just looking at it. I'm like, nah. My roommate Ryan, he keeps telling me the next movie we're going to do, he's like, we're going to the woods, and I'm like,
we're going to space.
Yeah, I'm not going to go. I'm the type of person where, you know, back in the day, I was like, why is George Lucas filming everything on a soundstage? Now that I'm older and I've done it, I'm like, George Lucas is a genius. The outdoors is stupid. Like that's just, it's cold, it's wet, you trip a lot.
We talked about that in the Deliverance episode, because everything felt so raw and like and sweaty and just
because it was no budget and no permissions, so they just did it for real.
But this too felt like it felt really cold, and you can tell like they were miserable shooting these scenes, trekking through the mud with these dogs, and then just getting
the cave scenes alone. I was just a big I would not
crazy
be
how
there.
they do that. I was crazy.
I would not be there.
How they do it?
Well, let's pause that for 1 second. I really want to get into it, but that scene where he's picking them off. Now in the book, he kills like 16 people. He is a bit more of a machine, and that's another change that Sylvester Stallone brought in. He's like, I don't think he should do that. Like he's
trying to survive.
He's protecting
so
himself.
Much smarter.
But these guys are prey to him, and it's that bit that he kind of makes. He goes, "I could have killed them all. I could have killed you, but like out here, you're the prey, like I'm the hunter kind of thing. It's so badass. Badass. And and he does get undone by a small kid. I'm like, oh, I should have killed the kid. No, I'm kidding. It's like, the hunter's kid.
You heard it here first,
Yeah,
folks.
and it's so funny because those hunters really, it's just that one scene, but they don't really ever pop up again, right?
Yeah, I think they were just out there.
Yeah.
But then that's when, and so by this point, okay, he's injured everybody. Like that trap that goes into the guy's leg.
Oh, the punch! Oh boy, right into his dick. You
Yeah,
know, one of those.
oh my god, it's the worst. But that's where we get introduced to Richard Crenna, as Troutman, who also plays that same role in Hot Shots, which is just...
Yes, he played it so well. It's like J.K. Simmons playing Jameson. You can't recast. It's got to be him.
Just play him forever.
To a point where I forgot it was Powers Booth who played that character in MacGruber.
Yeah,
I was like, no way they got him back again.
Got the same guy. But interesting enough, he was brought in last minute. Kirk Douglas was originally cast in that role, and they got one day of shooting in, and then Kirk Douglas pitches this end. He changed the end of the movie. He's like, so basically, I'm gonna kill Rambo, and then the last shot you're gonna see is I'm driving off. And then I'm going to tilt the mirror up, and you're going to see I'm wearing his bandana. And they were like, "Cool, Kirk, there's the door. Get the fuck out."
What an insane ending to pitch.
He's like, "I want to be the hero." And so Richard Crenna comes in, and it's he got wildly praised for it, but
so good
for a last minute thing. This is the scene, the character he's best known for, because it's like, and his just delivery of his lines are great. And he's like, whatever he says is like, oh, I'm not here to rescue him from you. I'm here to rescue you, like the other way. Yeah. I'm here to save you from him.
I'm here to bring him in. I trade him. I made him what he is. And even he's the only person that can get him on the radio. It's like, in a weird way, a father figure to him.
Right.
But,
and then, of course, the famous, you go after him, you better bring a supply of body bags.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest crowd cheer.
A great
hell yeah.
Body bags. The way he says body bags. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the best line of the movie.
Yeah. Everybody who's written an action movie after that saw that scene and oh, why couldn't I be included? Why couldn't I thought of that?
Beat us to it. But then we get the great sort of follow-up. So now, because it's escalated and the news has gotten involved, now they've got the sort of the Weekend Warriors, the National Guard out. And apparently, for all those guys, apart from that captain guy, the guy that's giving the orders, everyone else is using their real names in that scene. So it's just whatever their names are is just what they are. But it's kind of that fun bit of they've got him kind of triggered. And the sheriff goes, and no shooting. And it cuts to literally all of them firing their guns at this bit where he's hiding. And get the rocket launcher out. There's
maybe 30 guys shooting at Rambo. And then he just turns the corner and starts firing and hits almost all of them.
He puts the bullets right in front of them, and they go, all right, return fire. And he's like, nuh-uh, not you. And he's like, no, I'm not doing it, Steve. You can do it.
Literally, it's a young Bruce Greenwood, just who's like, get him, Bruce. And he's just like,
nope. Nope, I'm good.
I'm not doing it. And then they whip out the bazooka. And that's
not an RPG, a straight up bazooka.
Yeah.
The most inaccurate weapon in the history of weapons.
That's all right. Well, they just they had to hit a hill. They got it.
Okay.
But then we get that scene let's talk about it, because I was like, wow. It's a very wow scene of he's in this abandoned mine that becomes tunnels. There's jagged edges, there's water, and there's two things that I found fascinating. Is one, you realize the only lighting source is coming from that torch. Beautifully shot. But two, how did they make the torch do what it was doing? Because you see the logic of it is he realizes there's a way out because there is a breeze. So he's always following the
it's
torch.
going forward. Right.
Mm-hmm.
How did they do that? Are they just in a real,
I was wondering if they shot that in a fucking cave.
It doesn't look like it was shot on a soundstage.
I know. I can almost guarantee that was probably, for most of that was probably real. Once they get to the scene with the rats, I'm not so sure.
That was
because how would you wrangle them out in the wilderness?
Definitely grab rats, man. He threw them many rats were maybe harmed in the making of this movie. He was angry with those rats.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's definitely some scenes you can shoot that way, but yeah, there's some other parts where I was like, that's a lot of different set to build.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is weaving and like, it was just so good. It was so good.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I think once you get to see the part where there's like more mine stuff around, that was probably a set. But
yeah,
I'm willing to bet there's a lot of in there that was probably still pretty practical, which is why I would not be there on the day of filming. It
was kind of reminding me of the other Stallone movie, the one that in a tunnel, Daylight.
Yeah.
That's a good movie.
I thought you were going to say "Stop or My Mom Will Shoot." That's
I was just thinking about that movie today. That my favorite trolling of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
like he's like
genius.
I put out that I wanted to do that movie just so he would take it. Like it's a real like,
easily the funniest prank ever.
That's a great one. It's so really, really good. But yeah, that scene, that him in the tunnel, it makes sense. Like you often see people, they build these amazing torches, but in this one we see him scavenging and finding, then creating the strips, and you see the strips hanging off the side of him. We see him renewing the strips.
Yeah, like he whips it around. I mean, it looks like he's almost ready to set himself on fire. It's crazy that's him doing it. And
it's very, very, it brings you in. Like big credit to Sylvester Stallone in this one. He looks just like cut out of granite. But he's also, instead of him, just like you said, by the time you get to Rambo 3, he's playing a cartoon. But Rambo 1, he's sensitive. You sense his desperation. You get the relief when he realizes, oh my God, I found a way out, kind of thing. It's like it just.
Oh, and he drops the torch. Yeah,
it has that moment, and then we get into what a great, like he gets onto the 4-tonner, that truck. Gets the guy, whatever, isn't it, Cathcart.
He's like, what's your name? All right, get the fuck out.
Yeah, all right, time for you to go, buddy.
Another great stunt, like him throwing him out of that car. Like that guy lands right on his spine.
Yeah.
Like on tarmac, like it.
Yeah, that was not. He was like, that guy was limping for a long time afterwards.
Yeah, it hurts my back just thinking about it. Ugh.
We get that cool, excellent, the great sort of truck going through the police car.
That was insane. Yeah,
but what it does is it sets up that awesome last scene.
Yeah, the show
where it's him and the town, and he just starts sort of like just taking out infrastructure, taking out the lights, setting up, like, misdirecting people, all to just come for this guy.
And even before that, he takes the truck and drives it through the gas station. Like, and normally in any other, and RoboCop, and in any other movie, this would just be a massive explosion. But no, it's just the gas leaks out. He gets out, takes out the machine gun that the guy told him was in the back.
The M60,
throws his lighter away, which, I mean, you could probably just light it and keep that lighter out.
Yeah, everyone throws their Zippo away. It's a good lighter.
He threw the lighter away, and then it shot at the fuel, and I was like, you threw, all right, I get it, you're improvising, sure.
It was unfortunate all those cars for sale were filled with napalm, though.
The most explodey cars ever. They were all Ford Pintos.
And they were all driven there by Kurt Russell.
Call back to Arizona episode. People listen to it. Used cars. It's a good episode. It's the Wraith episode, one of our favorites.
Yeah.
If you thought for a second we weren't going to mention that movie on this episide, shame on you.
I'll always go back to the Wraith.
Hey. But that last scene, it's him running around a real town. Man, he handles that M60 great. But it's
the first time I'd ever seen someone have the bullets like wrapped around. Yeah. Which, as a kid, like that was like, oh my God! Every Halloween you wanted to be. And then if you've ever gotten to a point where you were able to try it, like those things are really sharp and they hurt your nips.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's probably absolutely going to rip the hairs out. Also, by the way, remember that great special effect of that cut on his arm?
Oh yeah, and where he's stitching it up.
Yeah,
it looked real. I thought he really hurt himself falling.
So did I. So then I was reading is that it was such a good practical effect to test it out. He went to the local hospital. And he's showing them, and he's like, "Oh, I'll just have a couple of Tylenol." And they were like, apparently the nurse was like, "He was the baddest motherfucker we've ever seen." It was just like, that's how good it was. Because you legitimately like, did Slice Stallone?
Oh yeah, I thought like this movie looks so low budget that it's very believable that he was doing all of this stuff and really injured himself.
Though I will say, the one thing I do remember from Rambo 3, like burned into my memory, is that he's been shot through his gargantuan glistening torso, but he's like the bullet's gone in and out, so he puts like gunpowder on it and he lights it, and you see the flames go out the front and the back. It was just I
it's like a
love
fucking a road flare, just
Yeah.
a Roman candle.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole final scene, it instead of building up to some gargantuan crescendo, it's him guerrilla warfare. It's him just like running here, running there. Great shots sometimes with shadows. You know, it was like lovely, sort of beautifully shot.
It's him. It's just him at this point against one guy.
Yeah,
it's him against the sheriff.
And
but
then
you get that geography, like when he blows up that gas station, you have the sheriff on the phone, and you see the smoke like way off in the distance. So I mean, he's got some ground to cover, but the geography of all of it just works so well.
When,
it's easy
when
to
he
follow.
sets off the distraction of like, you know, the bullets going off, you see where that is. We see him then get, I know where the sheriff is. You know, you can sense that the sheriff is like, he realizes he's in over his head. And again, instead of it being some long drawn out like fight or anything, he terrorized him by just fucking up the police station. And that shot of Dennehy, you see him with his, he's got his closing his eyes. He's like, what have I done? Oh my God. Like, I'm in so much trouble. But then he still goes to fight. But that when the crescendo is some goddamn acting by Sylvester Stallone of when he talks about, you know, his buddy getting his leg. Okay, he's got your leg.
It was the first time in the movie I had to put subtitles on.
It is hard to understand.
Yeah. It's very emotional. Very, very emotional.
Very. And that's kind of like, because the way it moves the movie, I mean, how did the book end? Does he kill himself?
They shot that ending too. Yeah. So there's that alternate ending that exists where, you know, Rambo, he goes through that entire emotional scene, and then he takes the colonel's gun and he shoots himself. And I do think that the only flaw with this movie is like it didn't go with that ending. I think that ending would have really, really driven the point home, as opposed to the way it ends, where you're just kind of like, oh, okay, so he just goes off, and it was like, well, we might want to make more of these movies, you know, and so kind of last 30 seconds.
I'm not going to necessarily argue with you that I will say that if it had gone with that ending, I think the movie would have been like regarded as an absolute classic.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would just go, wow. And then he kills himself at the end. No, a movie's done that, but it's almost, it's too much of a bummer as well. It's like,
it's so sad.
You know, so like the ending, at least like they're taking him off, he's going to prison kind of thing. I like, you know, he's going to get some help. For me, the only flaw of this movie is, it's great. You got the ending. He walks out, and then it's a long way. It's almost like the theme song from Enterprise.
Been
a long road.
Getting from there to here.
Would this have, had they gone with that ending, would this be the only movie where a Sylvester Stallone character dies on screen?
Well,
Does he die in Spy Kids 3D?
Yeah.
That's a good point, actually.
I mean, I think his career died after Judge Dredd, but
dude, Judge Dredd, dude, that was actually quite close to the comics I used to read. Don't get me wrong, Dredd's the best movie, not Judge Dredd.
Oh yeah,
Dredd 3D.
You
have to say the full title, Dredd 3D.
We're gonna figure out how to do that movie.
But yeah, you're right. It would have been insane to think like for him to do that for this movie. I think the trajectory of his career would be it seems like it would be so different.
Had they killed his character, I think it would have ended up like a Rocky. I think it would have got like an Oscar nom or something. You know,
absolutely.
Yeah. As opposed to just being, you know, and then like go off and make all the sequels. Whereas like if it had just been a standalone, like that one movie, First Blood. Oh, have you ever seen that? Oh, it's got an ending. Oh, it's gonna, oof. I think it would be regarded like we regard it as a classic.
Now, if you would have gotten that plus the Kirk Douglas ending,
whoa,
boom! Now you're talking. That's how you get the Rambo sequels.
Yeah, it's one of those alternate endings, much like the original ending for Dodgeball. Where like the moment you see it, you're like, that was the right choice. Cutting it was the wrong choice. The original Dodgeball ending is the funniest damn ending I've ever seen to any movie.
Just quick, if you haven't listened to a previous episode where we all talked about this, it's basically the original ending to Dodgeball is they lose and it just cuts to the credits. The end.
It's the funniest ending of all time. Other than the original ending of Little Shop of Horrors, also insanely funny. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. That's all I want to say is like, I feel like that was a missed opportunity cutting that ending. But other than that, I think it's like a perfect movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, get the "It's a Long Road" song out from the end, and
that was, what a hard right that takes.
And
after
honestly,
such a powerful.
We're on the text thread, and Will was like, "Sung by Frank Stallone." I bought that. I was like, "Really?" Like, no. I was like, "Man, it sounded like it could have been."
Oh, you were fucking with me? I swear, I joked. I was like, written, composed, and starring Sylvester Stallone. Honestly, it did sound like a Frank Stallone.
It did. That was like you hooked us, Will. You could have sold that one down the whole way. You would have bought stock on that.
I went to sleep last night thinking that.
Anytime I hear like someone singing in a Sylvester Stallone movie, I'm like, oh, he got his brother Frank to do it.
Damn it.
That's my favorite reoccurring Norm Macdonald joke.
Why not?
Dude, for real. Now I'm almost annoyed they didn't get Frank.
Yeah, right?
Again, another missed opportunity.
Yeah. How do you think Frank feels?
Honestly, I feel like we've had to rush through, it's like, sometimes it's the downside of doing 3 movies is that we sometimes don't get, like we have to kind of get through them, quicker instead of really, really getting into the meat of them, because I think there's a lot of meat. Well, actually, very quickly, yes, let's talk about this quickly, is there's no meat on First Blood. It's a tight 90.
Oh, yeah.
And it set up this framework for action movies in the future. But the original cut was 3.5 hours.
Yeah,
and Sylvester Stallone, when he saw it and his agent saw it, Stallone said he felt physically sick. And he tried to purchase the film to just get rid of it because he said he was afraid it was going to ruin his career. But they got into the edit and they created this 90-minute banger. And it's like, it's crazy to think, because we were all talking about, wow, what a tight movie. It was not. It was a mess, apparently. And they put this together in the edit, this tight 90, and what a great movie, right?
I can't even imagine a 3.5-hour version of it. Like, what else could it be? Like, the only thing I can imagine is just 2 hours of them looking through the wilderness, and like,
or maybe like more flashbacks to him in like the shit he went through in Vietnam, which is totally unnecessary in the context of this.
It's just the way they did it's very quick and very effective. You understand it.
Yeah. There probably is a lot more Vietnam stuff because he has like a mustache, like he has like different facial.
It's the most insane facial hair.
It's very 70s.
It's super 70s. Yeah. So it is kind of like hard to imagine. Like, well, he just drew that out for just things that were going to be a little snippet. There probably is more.
You could have done more like Brian Dennehy's like home life if he's like miserable with it, whatever's going on there.
Right, yeah, definitely impotent,
Yeah.
Just he's got to take it out on somebody.
You get the backstory of each one of the police officers. I kind of want to see this now.
David Caruso, where's the TV show? Let's the TV show of what happened to all the sheriff's department after this would be great. In Second Blood.
First Blood Part 2, the best sequel name I've ever heard in my life, and I love that the third one is just Rambo 3. Totally forgetting what this franchise was called.
Or John Rambo.
Absolutely love it.
5 was just Rambo or something like that. I never saw 5.
That's the Mexican.
That's the racist one.
That's the
one where that's the one where Rambo decides everyone in Mexico needs to die.
It's not a good movie.
There was I like 2. I always like 2. Is shit, but not. I mean, it is though, but not. It is a fun watch, but it's not First Blood.
3 is the really bombastic one.
The bit I always 3 is ridiculous, but 2 I always love the bit in 2 is where like he's there's the Vietnamese girl, and this whole movie, and she's like, John Rambo, do you ever think you can love again? And he goes, yeah, and then she dies immediately. It's fucking,
she just explodes.
Boom, dead. He's like, he's like, I feel like I could leave war behind, and I love you. She just explodes. I'm like, oh shit, never mind.
Just basically the opening
screenwriting.
It's the opening to Sleepless in Seattle.
We tied it all together. There we go. Perfect timing. All right. Well, let's get to it. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of what we try to do here on the podcast. Man. Okay.
It's gonna be tough.
Let's try and figure out. Well, it is going to be tough, but it's an interesting debate because, all right, 3 movies set in Washington. Now we have First Blood that is shot in British Columbia, Now, in all honesty, that is right across from Washington. You know, it's just they shot it in Canada, okay? But it does feel very
for sure
we see
Pacific Northwest. Yeah,
Dantes Peak. Now, it is shot mostly in Idaho with special effects to put the mountain there, but you could have fooled me.
Yeah,
it does look great. Now, they do actually all that crater stuff, the helicopters and things like that. That's actually Mount St. Helens. So they literally went to Mount St. Helens to shoot some stuff, which is quite cool. And then we've got Sleepless in Seattle, which is shot massively in just Seattle, but it is in Seattle. You've got all these places around the city. They even shot the soundstage stuff, like I said, on a naval base in Seattle. But like you pointed out, Ryan, we also have New York. We also have Baltimore. And you'd almost say that, you know, it's almost like a famous New York movie because what happens at the end? It's on the Empire State Building. So none of them are strictly, you know, Washington. They've all got elements or hints of or things like that. So where, I don't know, guys, where do you want to start?
Sleepless in Seattle, you can't do that movie anywhere else. I mean,
True.
It's right there in the fucking name. But I mean, you can't. What would it be like? Sleepless in Scranton? Like, you know, what'd you do?
It would just have to be something on the West Coast and East Coast. And it's like the only other choice would have been Los Angeles or San Francisco. You know, it's been done to death. San Diego. So it's like I feel like, I mean, they did switch. Like the Baltimore was they moved Meg Ryan's character from somewhere else on the East Coast and they put her up in Baltimore, so people can get moved around. But no, I'm good with that. But it is, you know, it's Seattle, right? Yeah. But when you think Washington State, you think Mount Rainier and things like that. You think the mountains, you think the trees. So while it is the only one of these movies that actually shot in Washington, basically, it's Seattle. Whereas the other two didn't shoot in Washington, but feel like what we imagine, you know, our idea of Washington State is. So, I mean, do you agree or do you disagree?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, and again, the shocking lack of Space Needle in this one for me is kind of a deal breaker. I really thought there was more Space Needle.
There was only about 3 seconds of Space Needle in all three movies. So you're correct on that one. It was just one shot in Sleepless in Seattle. But Will, what are you thinking, mate?
Yeah, it's tough because, you know, when we come up with situations like this where none of the movies are like perfectly, you know, like a representation, we got to go with like, you know, what do we think is the best of the three as far as the representation goes? My mind usually goes to like, well, what's the most modern? Like, what would people today say, you know, is most representative? All these are fairly recent, though. Like, it's not a giant situation where one takes place like 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. These are all, you know, they were all filmed like, you know, within a few, 10 years apart from each other.
And a slight timelessness to it. I mean, like, I know when you get Sleepless in Seattle, you know, there's not so much cell phones. You do have cell phones in Dantes Peak, but they're kind of like the sort of basic ones. And First Blood, you're just out in the middle of nowhere, so it doesn't matter.
Are there any call outs in First Blood that he's in anywhere other than Hope? Like, is it say Washington anywhere? I don't really, it's just alluded to it, or just,
it's never specifically.
It's just like a generic Pacific Northwest area.
I think when they get, you know, they get the National Guard out and stuff like that. I think, was there a, because even Troutman says he's come up from Bragg. So he's traveled across. So it's not like he's come
Beth
from
Troutman's in this movie?
Yeah, if only.
She was a fantastic colonel.
Shout out to Beth Troutman.
But yeah, it's non-specific about that, but it is very specifically made to look like Washington, you know, and like by shooting in British Columbia. But like I said, you know, it's just across the border from Washington. It's right there. Yeah. You know, and it's like, that's basically the same place, but not. So it's a tough one because I kind of lean towards Dantes Peak only because it's a slightly more positive. I know everyone gets wiped out and it dies and blows up, but the town, the idea of the small town, the idea
we do love a small town on this podcast.
I do love a small town. I live in a small town. I'm a sucker for a small town, and by all means shoot this idea down. But like, I guess it's because it's a slightly more sort of positive feel. It's kind of why I want to go to Washington. You know, I want to go out, I want to go walking, I want to go to these places that I've seen, these national parks and stuff like that. Whereas
get swallowed up by a volcano.
Get swallowed by a volcano, yeah.
Meet Linda Hamilton, sure.
But then again, is that only because First Blood is murky and cold?
Yeah.
And is it just because it's nice and sunny in
But I think that also captures the feeling of that.
Right.
You know, that
so there you go.
That's what the weather is like. I mean, they even in Sleepless in Seattle, they say like it rains
9 months of the year.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can take that. That pushes it now. I can see that pushing more towards First Blood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a small town. It's just the sheriffs were dicks.
Yeah.
So nothing's changed.
So, very identical to real life. I think to kind of put some points over for Dantes Peak is you do get more of the town and more of the town's people. You get a much wider variety of people. First Blood, you're really focused on the sheriffs and, you know, Rambo and, you know, the National Guard people. You see the town, but you don't experience it. And Sleepless in Seattle, a lot of Seattle representation. The fact that we're going to other cities too, and it's a lot more travel in that one.
It waters it down for sure.
I was surprised that I forgot about how much. I was like, oh man,
that's what I'm saying.
It's
even when
really
I picked
Chicago,
this,
it's really Baltimore. It's like
30 minutes in, I'm like, oh man, this is really not a lot of wash. Like just because it's Seattle in name, and I know that's such an integral part to the movie, but you know,
I did love his house.
Oh my god, come on, on the water, that's amazing.
Like, I want to live there.
How does that, like, that doesn't exist? That's insane.
I know. I was kind of thinking, like, can I find houseboats like that? Like,
I think
here in
they're
California?
probably in Seattle now. It's probably $8.5 million.
Right.
Back then, it was probably like.
Wait, was it a houseboat or was it just a house on?
No, it's a house, but it's not a boat, but it's on the water. Like you can see it, like when they step off it, it kind of moves and shit like that. It's like, those are real. Like, it was like, give me that, man. That's kind of
house version of a waterbed. It's awesome.
Yeah, you get seasick and shit. Okay. So it's a kind of a toss up between. Okay, Will's point about First Blood, seeing the town but not experiencing the town, whereas Dantes Peak, we're there for weeks. We meet the people. You've got the people that live out of town. You've got the idea that people come through the town.
Dante's weak.
Yeah. It's like, okay, Will, you pushed me back. You pushed me back towards Dante's Peak. Ryan, where are you lying on this right now?
Yeah, I can see that too. I mean, it's got a very similar town folksy feel, except you don't get the misery and dread from First Blood, you know? I mean, so
you're gonna get the misery and dread of the impending doom of an explosion.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the first half of Dante's week.
Dante's fortnight.
I think that's where I'm landing too. Is just you get a little bit more in Dante's Peak than you do the other two.
I feel like we're gonna get lit up for this decision, but yeah.
Well, the thing is, and we'll get back to it in a minute when we talk about our also rans, but with the movies that we chose and the way that they've been represented and the time that's spent in it, I think, Will, that point you made, I think, has made the decision for me. I think my vote's going Dante's Peak. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm on board.
All right. Okay, Will. Okay. All right. Okay, but it's kind of an unsatisfactory one, isn't it? I think it's like we need to I bet there's something else that we can get into this that's better. But I don't care because I had so much fun watching these movies this week. It was a great great trio of movies.
You better pick a good one for next week.
Yeah, well, I think I've got a good one. But I tell you what, it's like it's sometimes we talk about the order they need to be watched in. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, with this one, I didn't even clock that. I think I took down I did Dante's Peak, Then I did First Blood. No, I'm sorry. I did First Blood, then Dante's Peak, then
yeah, me
Sleepless
too.
in Seattle.
But I did a double feature of Dante's Peak and First Blood back to back, baby. That was very satisfying. And then today was just me with a cup of tea watching Sleepless in Seattle and having a bit of a cry. So yeah, but thoroughly fun, enjoyable movies. This is a really easy week. If you're looking for fun movie recommendations to feel and have a good time, you know, outside of the post-trauma and everybody dying, you know, from a volcano. But outside of that, you know, it's a fun movies. So here it is. It's official. We got the stamp that the official movie to represent the state of Washington on the United States of a Movie podcast, at least until we find a better movie to dethrone it, is 1997's Dante's Peak, Roger Donaldson. I don't think it's streaming anywhere, though. I believe you can, if you go to your local library, you can rent movies for free. So try find it there, or you can be like me and buy it, because it's a fun movie to just watch on repeat. Now, also Rans. There were some good ones. I had two that I almost went. I almost went with Disclosure, because I was like, I found it to be kind of an interesting companion piece because we did Basic Instinct, and that is a very Seattle movie, but it also gets out of the city a bit. So I think that could have been quite interesting.
That's the Demi Moore one?
Yeah, Demi Moore. Yeah, it's a Michael Crichton book as well. So it's weirdly enough would have been another Michael Crichton. Yeah. And almost went with it. But the thing is, it's very little actual Washington is war games.
Yeah.
I really wanted to watch War Games. Yeah. But I had to go. I was like, I realized that it's set in Seattle, but that's shot in California and that's shot in Colorado, and there's no Space Needle. So I still might bring it back next time. Yeah. What about you guys? Any also rans that you were circling?
I was pushing towards, oh God, I thought War Games was so good. It's a movie I remember watching so many times with my dad growing up. Yeah, it was like super into computers. It's a whopper of a movie, I said. That's a good movie. Plus anything with Dabney Coleman. I mean, come on. But I was leaning towards Harry and the Hendersons, but my hesitation was that it was just too similar to First Blood.
They are practically identical.
I actually haven't seen that since I first saw it, because I watched it and then I watched the TV show, right, which came on for like a season.
It was a sitcom, right?
Yeah, but was it John Lithgow from
in the movie? In the movie.
In the movie.
Yeah. Oh man, mate, that would have been fun.
It's great. It's a great movie, and it's weird. It's like super heartfelt, but I don't think like a lot of it. And I just haven't seen it in forever, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's decades for me. Decades.
Yeah, same.
You know, I've seen it on VHS in the 80s.
But the practical effects, again, like the makeup, like was that a Stan Winston job? Like it looked so good.
I remember he was a very expressive Bigfoot. Yeah, that was his teeth and shit. What about you, Will? Any sort of hidden gems or something that I've forgotten?
I just had to look up to see like what others I had listed. Some I told you guys about it, some I don't think I did. But Safety Not Guaranteed was on the list.
Oh, I like that movie.
Kind of an indie gem, like from Duplass and what's who? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm spacing on it.
Is it Jake Johnson?
Adam Driver. Yeah, no. This is oh gosh, now
is it the time travel one?
Aubrey Plaza and Mark Duplass. It's the time travel one.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Jake Johnson is in it. I totally forgot he was in it. Yeah. I was gonna do
I've seen that movie once, but I don't remember it.
It was funny, but it just the moment I saw First Blood, that was my pick. But also I was, as a joke, I was circling the Red Dawn remake because that takes place in Washington. And I was like, that would be such a funny comparison. So
we'd have to do maybe the Patreon. We'd have to do a live one.
That was a garbage episode. That was. I mean, that one was a bad movie. There was another one that I looked at and I've heard great things, but I've never seen it. I didn't want to commit to it having never seen it. But Captain Fantastic, I think, with Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo Mortensen.
It's like he's kind of like he lives off the grid with his family and have to kind of integrate into society, kind of thing. It's kind of. He's wearing like a red suit on the cover. I've heard great things about it. I've heard it's good, but I just didn't know enough about it. Hadn't seen it, so maybe I'll watch it before we circle back around to Washington. Okay, well there are some like Washington did have some pretty deep movies to pick from. We've got some definite picks for the future.
Every Twilight movie.
Oh, the Twilight movies. Yes, that's right. I was like, we should have done Twilight. We should have done the first one.
We should each picked one.
Yeah. Oh my God. I've only ever seen the first one. I watched it so I could make fun of it. It's the same thing Will says, if you're going to rag on a movie, watch it. It wasn't terrible, but it was also kind of shit. Like my favorite, like it's one of my favorite bad lip readings is the bad lip reading.
Oh, that's a great one.
Dude,
that's real good.
Punched a fish. It's pure gold. Google it if you haven't watched it. That's amazing. But where we're going next week, you know what? I was inspired, and then Will beat me to the punch because I was inspired by watching Dantes Peak. Roger Donaldson's name popped up, and it reminded me of one of my all-time favorite movies. We're going to go from Washington State to Washington, D.C. We are doing a special episode on the District of Columbia, but that's because there is a very specific movie which Will mentioned in the text thread, which I'm picking. That's the movie.
I already don't remember what it was.
It is.
I'm so stoked now.
It's a great, and honestly, Ryan, if you've never seen it, I cannot wait for you to watch it. It's one I watch it all the time. I own it. I think it's one of the absolute top of the genre. I think it's a masterpiece. So we are going to go to DC. And so we've got White House movies, we've got Secret Service movies, but we've also got stepping outside. There are other kind of movies as well, made in DC. That's where we're going. It's gonna be a good one. I can't wait to see what we pick because there's so many movies.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough.
Yeah, there's almost like too many movies to choose from. But
we're all gonna end
I
up
know
picking
the pick you're gonna choose, and I'm stoked.
We're all gonna end up picking similar White House thrillers.
I know, but is it
First Daughter, baby? Here we go.
First Daughter. Oh my God! And then you've got the White House Downs of the world, and then you got the American Presidents and Dave and all this other stuff, and the movie that I'm picking, which is a banger.
Yes.
Guys, once again, like as always, you guys, fantastic picks, guys. Really, really great movies. Thanks so much for getting.
I swear I didn't think we would end up picking Dantes Peak.
I'm surprised too, but that's why I like doing this podcast. You think you know where you're going to end up, and just it takes one little thing and it pushes you the other way. To you guys listening at home, if you are listening to the podcast, can you take a moment, look down at the app in your hand, that phone that you are looking at right now, and rate us. Do it right now. Like, recommend us, share this, rate us, give us a star. That really helps. Review us if you can. Take a moment to say how much we suck or how awesome we are. That would be great. Tell your friends about us. Share us around. Don't forget, you can also find our Facebook page, United States of Movie, United States of Movie on Reddit. As well, you can also find me online. Send us ideas and suggestions. You often do it on my Monday videos when I post as That Englishman in Texas. TikTok, Instagram. You can also find me as Ollie Pettigrew or Ollie_Pettigrew. You can find Will as Entitled Willennial. You can find Ryan's interesting and fascinating movie creations, fake movies, and t-shirts from the podcast at threadless.com/rhinodigital, RYNO digital. And then after that, just to all of you, thank you so much for watching, so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the next episode of the United States of a Movie podcast.